This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the beautiful Daytona International Speedway for the second time in 2020. As this time, the Major Series is all set to go for its 7th running of the Daytona 500, live on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. It's one of the most prestigious races you can win in all of iRacing. And tonight's competition will be none other the less for the European splits. I'm Justin Prince, alongside me is Nolan Rempel. Hugo Weiss in the director's seat for what should be an exciting race today. Nolan, a prestigious race to win, a unique format to lock yourself into the field. And today, it's going to be a challenge. 200 laps, 500 miles to determine a winner.
A challenge is an understatement. It is one of the longest races in the Major Series for the season, and definitely one of the biggest events you want to win as well. Well over 100 people have signed up to this race throughout the weekend. We have 3 people in these pro divisions alone, let alone all of our sportsman divisions all around the world. So this is going to be an absolute thriller of a race, and no doubt going to be one that we can all look forward to seeing how it will play out as well.
Of course, this is the second time, as mentioned off the top, that we've been at Daytona International Speedway, the first of which was the Daytona 2.4 back in January. On January the 12th, the IMSA class cars took their way around the road course here at Daytona. This will set up the run to Rockingham, with the majority of the first half of the season being on oval tracks or on oval-oriented race cars, so to speak. So it's important to get points early on to try and help yourself to the middle point where it will transition towards more of the road course side in the European split here. Nolan.
Absolutely, especially on those oval tracks and tracks like Daytona, you really need to make sure that you can play the track to your advantage and get those points early. Daytona is very much a strategy racetrack, what with the pit cycles, assuming we will run this race green, and it's going to be interesting to see how different pit strategies can play into effect. Of course, everybody here will run a slightly different strategy, so it'll be curious to see, will this impact the way this race plays out? Who will come in first? Who will come in later? And overall, who can triumph with that strategy over in the end?
A lot of major questions here, especially with Daytona, as these teams get ready to go. About a minute or so until they get to the grid. It was a unique format to Nolan for these drivers to lock themselves into the show, to make themselves into the top split, because they had to go through duels like in real life, Nolan, to try and get themselves into the top split for the pro class.
Absolutely, though unlike real life, the duels did not set the starting grid for the Daytona 500. They were more like heat races, determining who would even get into this top split today. That was left down to qualifying, which has run all the way throughout the week, leading up to just in the afternoon yesterday.
How it works is Row 1 was earned by the top 2 fastest qualifying times for Pro Split 1 and Sportsman's Class 1. P3 through 26 was earned through the duels, as talked about the past couple days. Then, P number 27 through 36 was earned by qualifying time, indoor provisionals, and any of the available qualifying sessions held throughout the week, while all other splits were set for the grid by qualifying time. The drivers are all set to go for 200 laps and 500 miles of racing. Here is how they stacked up in those duels in qualifying as we get all set to go racing. Tonight, it's Christopher Ems on the pole for the Daytona 500 with Ulysses Butaklis in row P number 2. Row number 2 will feature Eric Mick and David H. Baker. They'll start in P's number 3 and 4 for their respective teams. Kurt Crum starts in 5th position, Stefan Schlacker in the 6th spot, with Liam Sheen in row number 4. Row 4 will also feature Kim Johansson in the 8th position, while in 9th position, it's Jorgo Valverde alongside his teammate, Gabriel Ruse. Nolan?
And then down in the 11th place, we've got Mike Kelly right next to him. Mike, go lightly for Unorthodox Motorsports down to row number 6. Row 7 with Alexander Wigger and Joshua Wolf, 15th place, holding Dawson Brock and Travis Henderson. Riley Thompson and Colin Martzoff starting side by side in 17th and 18th place. Your top 20 rounded off by none other than Ross Banfield and Trevor Vavrovsky.
Cars nearly having a collision on pit road in the middle portion of that grouping is Adam Fassi-Pontes in 21st, Nicholas Skeets in 22nd, Andreas Robertson in 23rd, Hagstrom 24th, Kanata, Bennett, Niskanen round out P's number 23 through 27. Amelia starts in 28th. Lane Boval in 30th position. Finch, Dallas Pataska, Shane Norton, Jarrett Morgan round out the 34 drivers who made it to the grid. But already an interesting start to this race for Daytona International Speedway with its 31 degrees of banking in the corners, 18 degrees of banking in the tri-oval, 2 degrees of banking in the middle of the back straightaway. They nearly had collisions coming off the pit road, Nolan.
They very much did. I think Travis Henderson was the one that started that all. Might have stalled the car while it was rolling off. And of course, it's an easy thing to do. I'm pretty sure those of us that do start our cars manually, we've all had it happen to us at one point or another. So rounded the way through turns 3 and 4. I think we're about ready to get going here.
Just about all set to go for today's racing, as Ems will bring them to the field. Kinetic Racing with some good qualifying times for today's action. He'll bring them alongside the 666 machine of Butaklis on the outside line. Drivers all set to go. Are you set to go? Green flag is waving. We're underway for the Daytona 500. Clean start for the drivers, especially on the bottom side. Top side having a bit of checkups already.
A little bit of checkup on that outside line. Once they can get nose to tail, they will be able to find their way back to the front. But for now, it is going to be one Christopher Ems all alone up front. He will have some assistance here from Eric Mick, who's going to link up with that back end in that number 86 Chevy. It is Ulysses Butaklis leading that outside line, trying to fight back.
The machine giving the push that time in the unorthodox machine on the outside line. But there's still a long way to decide things out. But for the first lap, a huge run up on the outside. Butaklis coming up to lead lap number 1 of 200. Now here's the interesting thing with Daytona when it comes to the different lines and the importance of managing it. Drivers will get good runs in the corners on the bottom side, but you can't push in the said corners. A big shove moves up the 666 machine as Sheen goes for the race lead on the bottom side.
That was an aggressive push from Liam Sheen on the top side of the racetrack on the front straightaway. Managed to make the move done in turn number 2. It was risky, but it certainly worked. He's through to the lead, but Butaklis is trying to fight back around the outside line. We'll have to see if he can find that help. He's got Stefan Schlachter helping him out, especially off of the corners here, Justin. That is where the outside line can come in so incredibly massively for these runs.
Stefan Schlacker, a GSRC commentator on that outside line, and that line starting to develop. Here's the point that I was about to make there, Nolan. As this race progresses, the top line, the faster line down the straightaways because you carry more momentum off the corner. But on the bottom side, the momentum shifts to the bottom side since you have the shortest distance around. So it becomes a chess match to decide not just where you want to run in this race, but what line you want to be in.
Absolutely. It's going to be key to a lot of these drivers to figure out where they want to try and run. The outside line can be very good, and a lot of drivers will say they actually might prefer the outside line because you can see better into the corners. When you're stuck behind a car on that inside line, it's very hard to see your turning point for turns 1 and 3. A lot of drivers have been struggling that throughout the week, including myself. So it is quite a difficult thing. When you're on the inside, unless you're up in the lead, you really have to feel your way through the corners.
And a lot of the racing, too, when it comes to Daytona International Speedway, becomes a bit of teamwork. Right now, for example, teammates for Bombshell Motorsports lined up at the bottom side in cars number 3 and 4 in that line. Unorthodox, they're trying to find ways to connect with one another. One car's up in the front and the bottom side, one's up the top line towards the rear end of line number 2. So it's kind of also that thought process of wanting to find people you can work with, Nolan.
In order to make moves at Daytona, you need to have somebody to follow you. Anybody can make a look for a position, but unless you got somebody bumping you up there, you're really not going to go anywhere. You might be able to get that run down the straightaway, but in the corners, especially if you're on the outside, you're just going to stall out immediately. So you really do need to find somebody to work with you, and who's better to do that than your teammate?
Exactly right now. Vertical is still getting some pushes as the clouds go over the racetrack. Seen up at the top of the broadcast, it was starting at 97 degrees Fahrenheit track temp. The track temp now to 95. So that means the grip levels might be a bit more higher than, let's say, 110 degrees, to say the very least. These drivers, as this race progresses, might have to deal with a bit of handling at Daytona International Speedway. One car to note, though, Dallas Pataska started in 32nd. He's driving on his own on the top line, making it 3 wide to get himself inside the top 10.
And he's still picking up spots. He's now trying to make a move on Gabriel Roos, and he still has that momentum. Where did this speed come from? As he storms by on the outside, he's going to try to pick off now Eric Mick and Kim Johansson. Liam Sheen checks up that inside line a little bit, lets down Schlacker, and Putek was down the inside. And now, that is where Putaska is going to stall out, though. Now he's going to start dropping down in the back. This is what we were saying. You can start to make those moves, but you're never going to be able to fully find your way up there unless you've got somebody helping you. Very risky move, very tight on the top end of the racetrack. He's going to slot in behind Mike Golightly.
Yeah, one thing to note with Pataska, when it comes to his iRacing career outside the series, he is aligned with Dynamic Autosports. That is a team that features drivers such as Christian Schauder and has alliances with organizations related to Ashton Crowder. So that can in turn help you have a good race car at a track like Daytona, Nolan, to be aligned with eNASCAR teams at that level.
Absolutely, and setups can really be the key factor, as well as pit strategies when it comes to a track like this. You need to have a good car underneath you. A lot of these teams, they have been setting up non-stop. There have been teams that have put in 200 laps just trying to figure out qualifying setups. Hours upon days have gone into working on setups for these cars, making sure that they are the best that they can possibly be for their drivers today.
Looking on board with Liam Sheen right now. Currently, the racing has seen him. If you've started up towards the front, you likely have stayed there except for Dallas Pataska, who has gone up 24 positions. These drivers, I think, know at this point, though, if they go too aggressive, that it causes the chance of incidents. They do have to deal with the lap car. Hermilla is up in front of them. One of the Bombshell Motorsports machines moving up to the top side. So our first lap down car is the 941 machine tonight.
And gonna go 3 wide to get around it too. Didn't quite expect us to be getting lap traffic at just lap number 9, but Daytona be Daytona, I guess, as that Bombshell car gonna have to drop further down to the end of the order, getting nicely out of the way of these lead lap cars, allowing them to keep on fighting up front.
As these cars continue to fight up front, one thing to note, there have been a few drivers who have lost this lead group. The lead group currently separated amongst the top 20 by just about a second or so, but about 28th on back has fallen behind by about an eighth of a racetrack. That involves drivers like Claude Berval, Hagstrom, who's now being passed by, Henry Bennett, Michael Lane amongst the drivers, not amongst this grouping. So a few drivers have elected to drop away from this field and try and stay away just in case of potential trouble, as we've seen a bit of diciness in the pack here.
Well, it is a good strategy sometimes. If you're in the back, you may as well drop further down and not try to push the issue. You've got a good 190 laps yet to go. There's no need to really be pushing things really aggressively very early on. And again, if there is the potential of a big wreck up front, they have more than enough time to figure out where they want to go and avoid it. Apart from these drivers that are running the top field, who would have just fractions of seconds to try to think of a way through.
One thing to note, if there is an incident for some of the drivers, they do have one fast repair available. There's also a 26 incident limit. If you get to that point, you are done for the day. So right now, looking at the back of the pack, Niskanen in 22nd position, trying to work his way around the bottom side. Many of the drivers are working the way towards the back of the field, not liking what they were seeing potentially.
And again, I can't say I blame them. You got a car that's willing to go 3 wide around the outside and storm his way through the field. I might be backing off too a little bit, so scaring some drivers into submission certainly seemed to work out for him. Niskanen just inside of the top 20 now. It seems like that inside line would be the more dominant one. Further down in the field where drivers are starting to lose the field, you've got other cars like Eric Mick who are still trying to find some speed around the outside.
See some of the biggest movers so far. Everyone inside the top 6 has gained positions from their starting totals. Bataska plus 22, Bobrovsky plus 12 on the race. But Baker electing to go towards the back of the big pack so far. Has dropped 7 positions so far. Valverde dropping as well a few various positions amongst the top 12 overall runners. So mostly everyone is elected to stay up towards their starting positions. There have been a couple who have dropped 14 or more positions in some of the bombshell motorsports machines, but outside of that, the racing has been very clean so far in Daytona in the big pack.
It certainly has. It has been a very clean race. As we say that, caution has come out. That would be an incident in the back portion of the field since it did not happen up front. But the caution's out. It's a big mess over in turn number 3. I see at least 4 or 5 cars in this one.
And we mentioned the potential of handling issues. One of the Can-Am racing machines got very loose up at the top and collected the whole back of the field, who was trying to stay away from the big pack. Lonnie Finch was the car who snapped up on the top, and at this track, there is the chance in the middle portion of the run you can get loose on the top line into turn number 3 as entry.
Look at the 56 car. I think that was with poor Claude Belval went tumbling. Sorry, it was the 96 machine, Jared Morgan, that took a massive tumble down the banking. That is definitely not the way they wanted to start it out. They were hanging back to try to get some space from the first big wreck. A bit ironic that happened to be where the first big wreck took place, though.
Yeah, that's not where you expect it, but again, that's where a lot of teams in real life, Nolan, now consider handling to be a big time factor when it comes to racing at Daytona, because if you don't have good handling, you're not able to hold on to your race car, and there's the chance stuff such as that can happen. But see how the strategy car now rolls, as a lot of cars very slow in towards the pit lane entry. A lot of them committing in, some of them staying out, however.
They were quite slow on entry because they were waiting for the pace car to catch up. So that can't be common, but the race on pit road is certainly on. We're going to have two unorthodox cars that are going to be near the front of this group as they come on in. Who's going to be the one to lead them off?
And at this point, this is a track too where we might see drivers elect to just top off and get fuel. That looks to be the case for many of the teams. Some of them are electing, however, to prioritize handling by taking either 2 tires or 4 tires on their pit stops as they go off and away here. Your thoughts on that? It is early on, so there is still the chance they can get tires, say, at about 34 laps from now, but they're prioritizing the track position early, it seems, many of the teams.
Sometimes you have to prioritize that, and I know that a lot of these teams do have their own separate channels where they can kind of communicate with each other, figure out strategy. Some drivers have the luxury of having their own human spotters. Gal Valverde is one of them with Liam Quinn, and Dallas Pataska is the other in session, with Ashton Crowder, one of those peak drivers, as a spotter. So that is definitely something you'd want to have running up front, and that might have just allowed Pataska up into the lead of this race.
Remember, this just announced this week, the Coca-Cola iRacing Series, the official new title sponsor for the World Championship Series, Nolan. And that was a part of a 3-year partnership that is huge for iRacing. So the Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver Ashton Crowder helping Dallas Pataska today for tonight's action.
Well, my apologies on that. That is fresh news to me, so I seem to be behind the ball on some of our latest news in iRacing. Now we got some drivers coming down later on, though, to pit. Kim Johansson among them, with Dallas Pataska now coming down, and Ross Banfield. That was from third and first, 2 of those drivers that came down. That will allow, I believe, Puteklis back into the lead of this race.
And Dallas Pataska electing to take 4 tires as well on the stop. So right now we've seen how much Dallas Pataska charged for that field. He was quickly up inside the top 10 within 3 or 4 laps, Nolan. So he might be able to do it again potentially with the speed he's got in that race car.
Well, Pataska did show that he was more than ready to make some bold moves around the outside to fight his way back up. And knowing him, I wouldn't be surprised if he would make those same moves now. He certainly has got the car under him to be able to do so. It'll be interesting to see what he can do on this restart.
Who else has stood out to you in this race so far in terms of performance and how they have done in the early going of this race to try and show a good rhythm?
Well, I would say we really have to look down to Andreas Robertson. We haven't looked at him a lot this race, but he's moved up 13 spots at a 10th place in that 333 machine since the start of this race. So Robertson's been doing a great job to make his way up and kind of keep under the radar. Shane Norton up 20 spots into 13th. I believe started next to last place. And now he's running in 13th as well, just outside the top 10.
Yeah, one of the V-Apex machines, indeed. So, also, Andreas Robertson up towards 10th position, a plus 13 overall after the pit stops. Also aligned with Riley Thompson now in the TDR machines in terms of positioning on the racetrack. So everyone lining up behind a pace car, getting ready to go double file. As we get ready to go green, Puteklis in front of the field, Stefan Slacker in second position, Ems along with Roos, Golightly, Valverde, Brock, Wolf, Kelly, and Robertson round out the top 10 positions on the racetrack. Should be interesting to see how things go here again after already caution number 1 of this race, coming to 184 laps to go, Nolan.
I'm wondering if we'll be seeing drivers hanging back again, because that's what we saw off of the start of the race. And that crash wiped out just about everybody that was hanging around in the back. So it might make you wonder if they would try that again, or if they would elect to maybe stay up front this time and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to see. In your opinion, do you prefer to stay at the back or be one of the drivers up at the front? Because the theory is you're either going to be in front of the big one or behind the big one.
I guess my counter question to that is, what position exactly would I be running? If I was at the top 5, it'd probably be closer to up front I'd like to be, but anywhere about 18th back, I would probably elect to just drop further down and wait and see what happens. Daytona, especially a race like this, you really have to play everything by ear. You can't have a set-in-stone strategy going in, and every single caution, it will affect your strategy big time, as we've already seen with quite a few drivers who came down to the pits on the last caution.
4 drivers did not pit. Puteklis, Slacker, Ems, Roos, all of them on a 10-lap difference in fuel. Green flag is back up. We're racing once more. Kinetic Racing with a 1-3-4 off the jump as they try and line up on the bottom side.
So this will be interesting to see how that bottom line will be able to work out. It was the outside line that could get a significant run off of turn number 2 when they got back up to speed. And that run looks to already be carrying over as Stefan Schlacker getting a massive drive off of turn number 2 around Puteklis with Gabriel Roos right behind, but Roos actually dropping back a little bit here, and that has allowed Stefan Schlacker to slot in front of Uvens Puteklis.
swarm of the kinetic racing machines now trying to line each other up behind him. But Schlacker looks to lead for one of his first times on the day today at the Daytona 500. They're going to work with him in that 08 machine as he leads lap number 17's completion to the start of lap number 18. Top line already forming up once more though. Already 7-8 drivers up on that line. Dallas Pataska amongst them.
It really is the case if you got to try to pick your lines carefully because every line can get runs, but if you jump up there, that line could very easily check up and ruin your run immediately. So these drivers really have to try to read the field as well as they can and try to make sure that they can keep things all safe and sound. 3 wide though in the background, once again with Pataska up the middle, and it was Colin Martzoff that was stuck on the outside.
And Pataska not being patient to say the least. He wants track position inside the top 10 and wants it from the get-go. This time by comes across the stripe in P number 14, but nowhere to take the momentum. Stuck at the back of the top line at the moment, but remember, he was able to go all the way against the wall to make it 3 wide before. The question's going to be, will we keep it more patient this time?
Depends on how big of a run he can get, in all honesty, because it seems like he does not want to lift off when he's got a big run going. And I can't say I blame him. I know a lot of drivers, when they get a run, they want to take that run as best as they can. So he's going to be one of those drivers that'll be trying to find any kind of way through, no matter what it takes. He's shown he is not afraid to make the risky call.
And on board Pataska now trying to fight for position as they're going side by side for second up in front of them. Just nowhere to go through the crowd of cars yet for the 23 machine. Pataska, one of the points leaders after the Daytona 2.4 after his performances on the road course. Looking to show the oval muscles in today's race. But Gabriel Ruse is leading that top line at the moment. And he nearly got a run last time down the back straightaway to try and get the lead. Not electing to get a big run this time. No push from the 381 machine.
There is some lap traffic just on the horizon in the form of Jared Morgan, currently running last place in that Mustang. You can just see him off at the distance on this onboard shot from Christopher Ems. So we'll have to see how this field will deal with that. A couple drivers getting a bit twitchy on that yellow line. That yellow line down there of the transition to the apron, it can be absolutely killer, especially in the tri-oval, where it's such a slight transition, it can be just enough to send one car around and bounce it back up into the field.
Taking a look at Jared Morgan right now. He's the 34th place car about to be lapped. And again, many of the lead cars prefer you stay up on the top line. If you go to the bottom side, there's the risk of drivers trying to shuffle to that middle and top line, potentially colliding with one another. So that means Morgan with the slower speed and a fresh race car from that incident, mind you, will go one more lap down on the track. Him, Burval, and Hermilla are all one lap down at the moment in 32nd through 34th, as here comes the pack.
And it'll be 3 wide again with Morgan trying to keep it right up against the wall between the 2 white lines. It seems like things will be settled all safe and sound, especially on the back straightaway. So now that Morgan has found his way through, the leaders are going to be trying to fight hard with each other again, knowing that they don't have lap traffic to worry about. Still got Schlachter running up in first place. He's just ticking away at the laps at this point. Every lap in front is 1 lap led. No doubt Uldis Puteklas might try to find a way through here soon if that outside line can get a run and he can find a way up there.
Indeed, still 177 to go this upcoming time by. Looking on board with Joshua Wolf in the 6th position at the moment. Right now, one of the Torque Freak Racing machines. They do have a partnership this year with Grizzly Motorsports. So they are in line in terms of points and teamwork in the major series. They have a couple of the Grizzly cars behind in Travis Henderson and David H. Baker at the moment on the top line, following behind the 2 Kinetic machines. But Wolves have been having a good past couple of years, to say the least, on the iRacing service. Looking to have a good run today here, David. Nolan, rather.
You can call me Dave whenever you like, Justin. That's totally fine by me.
But to the question, your thoughts on Joshua Wolf?
Well, I think he's definitely been having a good day, to say the least. Like you said, he's been having a fantastic couple years on the surface, and now he's 8 spots up where he started. Check that, 9th, as he's just put himself up into 5th place. He is car number 12 on the inside, down the back straightaway. Inside line, looking to be checking up just a little bit here.
Gabriel Ruse with the huge run up on the top line. Will he take the bottom line, though? No. Couldn't get his teammate clear quite yet. One of the main things to think about again, those drivers at the front of the field have a 10-lap difference on the fuel cycles because they didn't pit. They also, as the lead cars, burn more fuel than the drivers in the draft. So those are 2 things to keep in mind here. In terms of strategy, they might have to duck down in about 15-20 laps or so, in a major difference in speed.
Well, the fuel window, if you run at green, is roughly 40 to 45 laps, give or take a few. So the fact that these drivers have been running out front, burning fuel, and they have not pitted, it could be interesting to see how your 2 leaders can handle things. But then the question will come, what happens if one of those leaders gets pinned down on the outside when they need to pit? That could spell disaster for the field and themselves, because if they can't get down and they run out of fuel, that's asking for the big one.
There's also, if they don't get any cautions to try and help them get back on cycle here, Nolan, is they're going to have a pack of just about 4 drivers compared to a pack of 20-plus cars. Yes, you can have some good speed with just 4 drivers lined up single file, but if you don't have that amount of speed to be expected with the drivers you have, that also could become a major thing to lose them a ton of time on the track.
Indeed, so we'll have to wait and see how this pit strategy will play out. And you also have to keep in mind the drivers behind as well. You know, when they try to bump up right against these drivers, the engine temperatures can run very, very hot. And these drivers also need to be careful that they're not overheating those engines, because if they do, it could really start to damage the motor. And if that motor pops, well, your day is just about done then, especially if you don't have a fast to help you out there. Liam Sheen getting put 1 lap down around the outside.
Sheen comes down in front of a teammate, so Morgan and Sheen all a part of this pack now that are laps down in the field. They are 2 laps down respectively at the moment. Check that, Liam Sheen now 1 lap down. Had to pit at the start of this green flag run. Coming up to 173 laps to go as everyone gets into a rhythm at this point. Again, impressed by what we've seen from the 08 machine as he continues to lead laps in his Toyota Camry in the front of the field and still has the help from Kinetic Racing.
Here comes Gabriel Rusto around the outside with a massive head of steam. Got Joshua Wolf helping him in the number 12. He's got that run out of the tri-oval and down towards turn number 1. Will that run be able to continue out through turn number 2? Wolf looking to give that triple, the 323 a bump. He's going to do so. Roos drops down in front of Schlachter. Schlachter's time leading this race is effectively over.
Gabriel Roos indeed up to the point with the help of Joshua Wolf, but Wolf has a bit of help from his fellow compatriots on the top line. A bump drop for Joshua Wolf. Wolf will lead this time by. Will he get clear, though, to get to the bottom side? And will he choose to do so? Henderson with a huge shot heading into the corner. They elect to stay up on the top line. Allows Roos to get a huge run back on the bottom side. Roos slides up the racetrack a touch as they go side by side down the back straightaway.
They're getting awfully close to each other up in these corners, and now you can see Wolf looking a bit more nervous. He's got Henderson to push him. Enter turn number 3. Will they be able to find that run, though? Right now, that inside line looking quite strong, with Schlachter pushing Roos up to the point. And now Wolf will have that run. Will he give the bump from Travis Henderson?
Henderson might be getting a little bit hot, though. That's the thing. Looking to keep a bit of an air bubble this time. Same thing on the bottom side. You mentioned the heat in terms of oil temps and water temps and trying to keep an eye on the water pressure as well. These drivers not wanting to cook the engines quite yet. The thing is, compared to last year's Daytona 500 in real life, these drivers do have the tapered spacers in them. And have the bigger spoilers you see there with the wicker bills at the top bars. They do allow for quicker recovery of speed, but in turn, there is the risk still of the temperatures inside the cars that can be a factor. These drivers might be running in the range of the 280s in oil temp at the very peak. That in turn will be around the 240s in a hot water temp, depending on how high your tape is.
Very much so. So a lot of these drivers are running, between 20 and 30% tape on the grills of their cars. A lot of teams elected to use 100% tape for their qualifying setups to get those revs as high as they could. But with the tape as it is, you have to make sure that you can be very careful with those temperatures. Once they start to hit the 290 or 300 for both water or oil temps, that's when you're in the danger zone. And if you hit 300, you better back out immediately or that engine's going up in smoke.
Indeed, but there's also the thought process here, Nolan, of, and some teams think about this, setting cars up for the top or the bottom. Some of the drivers, such as Kinetic Racing, have elected to stay on the bottom side. Others, such as Wolf, who's now getting a push from Henderson, elect to go up to the top side a lot. A bit of a run heading to the corner. Wolf, this time, takes the bottom side to take the race lead away.
Just hangs Henderson completely out to dry there on the top side of the track. Now it will be David H. Baker to be giving Henderson that push up. Not quite on the bumper yet, but Henderson does have that run that he needs down the back straightaway and into turn number 3.
Henderson does have a teammate lined up behind it, David H. Baker. 3 unorthodox motorsports cars also lined up behind. A few of them on the lead lap. Liam Sheen is a lap down amongst that group as well, though, as the top line still continues to develop. The speed so far in the 46.2s for a majority of the field, the fastest of 46.245 by Go Lightly in the head of the pack. But at the front of the field, Henderson gets a good run off the corner with the help of his teammate. Baker giving a bit of a bubble push. Will Henderson take the bottom side in his matte black machine? The 24 does to the race lead, Travis Henderson.
At this point, drivers are really just kind of in a rhythm, and now the shuffle is starting to come in big time, especially for drivers like Travis Henderson and for Joshua Wolf. So with that shuffle coming into play now, drivers are going to have to start to settle on into a rhythm. And now with the pit window approaching for some of the cars that were off on the fuel run, which will be opening for them in about 6 or 7 laps time here, you'll have to hope that they're on the bottom side.
Yeah, some of those drivers already starting to drop to that set bottom side and try and stay inside the draft. But Henderson drags the brakes a little bit, trying to work a bit of a bump draft with Wolf. Able to get a bit of a push on the bottom side. That is something you'll see drivers do, Nolan, is if you drag the brakes just a touch, don't lift off the gas, but drag the brake pedal, you can in turn push yourself back into the car behind you and essentially force a bump draft in that battle.
Indeed, so you can try to find your way through that, and it looks like that's what he's trying to do, find that little bit of a bump draft from Fox. Try to work, from Wolf to try to find his way up to the front there. I'm still looking at Liam Sheen here, who is really helping out David Baker here. I wonder if maybe Sheen is trying to take back his lap, because if he manages to take that lap and a caution comes out, that will be a lifesaver for Liam Sheen to be back on the lead lap, and he can put himself back onto a lead lap pit strategy. And that we can come down with all the other lead lap cars instead of having to wait one more.
Indeed, he is the lucky dog driver as well, should note. So he has to think about that as well. Still looking to give a bit of a push to try and get that lead lap. The difference is, though, he'd have to start behind all the lap down cars if there was a caution flag if he gets the lucky dog, starts at the tail end of the field in theory. But Baker getting a great run off the corner. Some momentum with that 63 machine with the push. Will we get enough to clear on by quite yet? Baker continues the revolving door of cars, moves up to the race lead.
And this is exactly what Sheen wanted to see. Now he's in prime position to go and take his lap back because he's got two UDOX teammates that will be helping him out behind. Adam Pontiel leading the charge for Unorthodox on the lead lap cars. He's going to give Sheen that bump exiting the tri-oval, try to get him up to the front.
Those Unorthodox cars came into today as a team number 9 in the Euro Elite team standings. They've been looking elite today in terms of positioning. Their cars have ran inside the top 5 and 10 for a majority of the Daytona 500 so far. A big shot from Ponti to try and give the push to Sheen. Sheen looking to get his lead lap back, can't get clear of the leader quite yet. And again, it looks like those UDOX machines all want to try and take over the front of the field before they approach their pit window.
Sheen's trying to get his lap back, but in turn, this is also helping Ponti to continue to work his way through this field to the front, because in turn, he's giving Ponti the toe that he needs to pull him up to the front of this field. So really, these are two teammates that are helping each other in two very different ways, and it could honestly help both of them in the overall race here. Sheen, though, losing a little bit of ground through turn number 2.
Now, wasn't as quick through the corner that time. As they worked their way down the back straightaway, a huge shot reeled up by the 84 machine. Just can't carry the momentum quite yet. They're not electing a side draft, though. That's one thing that you can do here. If you get close to a car, you can side draft. But pit stops underway. All the drivers who stayed out after the first caution flag are in. Ruse nearly spun it. Slacker just barely makes the cone as well.
That is one of the dangers about entering pit road. You really need to watch your braking points, because if you brake too early, you don't want to get run over from behind, but you don't want to brake too late, because you are on worn tires and coming in at well over 180 miles an hour. So it is very difficult to try to pick your way through and slow down in time. But now that the cars that have not pitted are pitting, that means now that the other drivers up further in this field, their stops are not going to be far off either.
Remember, they pit on the caution flag, every single car up on your screen, so it's about a 10-lap difference with these drivers on the racetrack. Amongst the drivers who have gone to the back of the pack, Mickey amongst them for Bombshell Motorsports, currently working in the back of the field. Some of the kinetic cars have also dropped back in the field to try and save fuel, as well as the TDR machines. But there's the chance we see some of those cars try and work their way back to the front for the track position, because there's the risk, Nolan, of the pack breaking up during a pit cycle.
Absolutely, and if the pack is starting to split up, you want to make sure that you've got at least 2 other cars that you can draft with, try to form your own little mini pack and try to fight your way back up to the front, because if you pit and you end up coming out all on your own, oh boy, you are in for a very rough time.
Indeed. Those cars who pit are right now just in front of the leaders right now. And Pudaklis and Schlacker in that group. There's one driver not a part of that, though. That's Gabriel Ruse. He is a lap down. Remember, he had to slide a lot to try and get inside the cone. He, in turn, had to come down a second time and pit, and ended up having more service done on the race car. In turn, had a long stop. Overall in 33rd position now.
He came in very hot, so I'm thinking potential speeding penalty, because he was flying into that pit road and he was very hot on the entry. So yeah, I think a speeding penalty is not entirely out of the question for Gabriel Ruse, which would explain that 54-second stop. Usually you're looking for about 14 to 16 seconds on a normal 4 tires and fuel run.
And that's going to be huge trouble for Ruse, one of the contenders here. And we're going to show this one more time with Gabriel Ruse. This is how dicey it was on the pit entry for the 323 machine. And remember, he was in the pack. I believe this would be the next time by around here. Was inside this lead group. And a couple of his teammates came in right around here, just a few seconds behind this. And it would be a major slide in, and then you see him, after the pit stop service, sit inside the box. This is why.
Gets way on the brakes, steps that back end out, and it was very close on that entry, but it doesn't take much to give you that speeding penalty, especially in the first segment of that pit lane. Of course, that is how it is kind of measured, is in sections on the pit lane. So that would be a speeding Section 1 violation. So it's a very tough one to call, but that is what it is looking like. Got one other car that's just exiting the pits. That is Diego Jimenez Vermilia in the 941 machine, who's exiting the pits in 32nd position right about now.
So strategy is coming into play, and as talked about, if you have the right number of cars and a good setup, you might be able to match speed of the big pack, if not be faster. That's not the case for all the drivers on the different cycle. They are 4/10 slower a lap at the moment. Make it now 7/10 as the leaders now get ready to lap them. And they're choosing different lines. This is getting dicey. They're going to force 2 wide, make it 3, as the kinetic racing machines take a second to get up to the top line. That was close.
That was a bit too close for comfort. Nearly made contact between Ems and Puteklis. That was very dicey indeed on the outside line. One of those kinetic cars nearly got forced into the wall by his own teammate in the midst of all of that. So that nearly ended in complete and utter disaster.
Now some of the drivers are starting to push. Dallas Pataska up to 4th position as all of this has been going on. Some of the kinetic racing machines battling. Morgan set up the grass. Morgan locks it up. Diving is Johansson. Contact as Thompson gets collected. Morgan still spinning on the bottom of the racetrack. No caution yet, as now Thompson comes up into the circuit. Now the yellow flag is out.
And Thompson did a full 360 flip in the midst of that, landed on all fours and flew back up into the middle of the field. And look at Morgan, who was doing a good job to back down and unfortunately just got hit from the rear end. There is Thompson's flip, jumped right over, it looked like one of the curbs from the infield road course there to roll that car over.
Yeah, I was about to say that's exactly what it looked like here, but here's what happened with Morgan. And you can see he's already, mind you, one of the lap down cars in this field, and in the tri-oval, got a bit of help.
Oh yeah, a little bit of a bump from the 63 machine. So that's not what he wanted to see. That was Liam Sheen that sent Morgan around there. And so one of those little bumps, and you really cannot push in the corners on these cars. It's so difficult to do. And it just sent Morgan for a real slide. Again, props to Morgan for doing a good job to keep that under control. Somehow kept it out of the pit wall where he slid down to the infield grass, but unfortunately, he was just in the way of one of those other drivers as he slid back up, and it was just one of those situations that really kind of snowballed from there.
Here's the thing for some drivers, though. Puteklis, Ems, Sheen, Schlacker, Burval, Roos, now all 1 lap down. Some of the cars just mentioned had just been lapped, Nolan as well. Remember, 3 of them, Puteklis, Ems, and Schlacker. That is not going to help their situation now, as they might be able to take the wave to get on the lead lap here, but they're going to be still off cycle in this race if they do.
Yeah, that's going to be the key thing here. Liam Sheen does not have the lucky dog anymore. So that's not what he wanted to see. I believe it goes to Puteklis now, assuming he is staying out, which in fact he is, as a big portion of your field coming now down into pit lane. And it'll be another race off of pit road. Looks like just about every car in the lead lap coming down.
Liam Sheen might be in a case where he might not be able to take the wave. Not sure, though, because remember, he did have to come down to the pit lane at the green flag in the last caution flag period. But all the drivers coming in and out of their pit stops. First driver out, David H. Baker, followed by Pataska and Joshua Wolf. Matthew Ponte in before Marsoff rounds out the top 5. We haven't mentioned Colin Marsoff much today. He's gone plus 13 positions in the field today.
Yes, indeed. So Marsoff on a good run. He's got, like you said, those 13 spots that he's going to be trying to hang on to, no doubt. So it'll be interesting to see how this will shape up. It looks like in that race off pit road, it was David Baker to win that race as the field files out and catches back up to the pace car. The pits are now going to be open for all the cars that were a lap or more down. So we'll have to see here what this will mean for all our cars that are more than one lap down. I believe the rule is if one of these lap cars stays out, they will get an automatic wave around that pace car to get a lap back.
Indeed, you can get a wave around as long as you're in front of the leader. You can get your lap back on the racetrack, and that's the case for some of the drivers now. Schlacker and Ems will have to take that wave to get back on the lead lap. Gabriel Ruse as well in that situation. Also in that situation, Amelia, who already pit 2 laps down to the racetrack. A couple drivers do have to come down. Liam Sheen amongst them in 31st position. So now will be the first driver 1 lap down with Burval and along with Amelia on the racetrack. So for those wondering, by the way, for some of the drivers involved in an incident, Johansson is indeed okay a little bit in the 44 machine. He's in 16th position, but he elected not to take the fast repair, should note, for No Emission Motorsports. Does have some right rear and right front damage. So this is where some strategy comes into play once again, Nolan. Do you elect to take the fast repair if you get into an incident early on, or do you try and bank it for if you, say, get into a huge incident?
It might be a good idea to even wait to see if you can get into a huge incident, so long as it doesn't put your car down on power. One other driver I am noticing with some more significant front end damage is Henry Bennett in his Toyota. The front end, not looking the prettiest on that 007 machine, so we'll have to see what will happen to Bennett on the restart. Of course, you want to make sure your car is still up to power in order that you can keep tabs on this lead field and at least just kind of ride around to the back. And there you can see from that onboard shot, yeah, that front end not looking pretty at all.
Yeah, the hood's popped up, the front end splitter not touching the racetrack. That car is going to be potentially down on power, but again, he's trying to bank that fast repair potentially in that TDR machine. But as this has all gone out, Dallas Pataska is up to 2nd position, should note. And now it's going to be interesting to see what that 23 machine can do in the battle with the 33 on this restart.
The battles on the restart are going to kind of decide how this will play out. Schlachter, Hormilia, Roos, and Ems are all getting waved around that pace car now as the lights are out. We're lining up double file, so those lap cars, they're going to have to scramble to get back around and line up with the rest of the field. They should be able to catch them, I would imagine, by the time they're entering turn 3 thereabouts, but we are approaching the quarter mark of this race, approaching lap number 50, which it will be on the restart. We still have yet to really see the big one, quote unquote, crash where, in my opinion, 7+ cars would definitely do it for that. It is the question, though. Usually it happens either at the very start or at the very end. It seldom tends to happen in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to see when that potentially happens, and if it does potentially happen. The racers have been very clean so far. We've blistered our way on through the first 49 laps, which is 2 caution flags in the event so far. One of the points leaders, Dallas Pataska, up at the front. Kirk Crum also tied up for the points lead after the first round, is in 20th position for the start. David Barraclough did not make Pro Split number 1 for today's event. But David H. Baker in control of the field on the inside. Dallas Pataska on the outside line. We'll see how these 2 drivers launch off. A bunch of unorthodox drivers also battling up on the top line as well for this restart. Green flag is up. We're back to racing for the Major Series Daytona 500.
Not the best jump from that outside line this time. Pataska did get the good jump, but those 2 unorthodox cars, they look like they hung back a little bit on that restart. Might be trying to get the big jump on the back straightaway, but that will allow David Baker up into the lead of the race, or to maintain the lead of that race along the inside line as the outside starts to drop back.
Dropping back now to get the run from Facci Ponti. Facci Ponti trying to give a push with that Toyota nose, and the Toyota nose a bit more rounded, along with that Ford Mustang front end for the race cars. Should note for that Ford Mustang, though, there is a little bit of a tiny lip that's right around the Ford logo to think about for some of these different cars. So, led at lap 50 goes to Baker. Pataska still battling on the outside line.
So it'll be Pataska that's really going to have to rely on Facciaponte now to give him the run that he needs to get his way back up to the front. And with the way that outside line has been moving, it is definitely a possibility, but they just need to be able to time that run perfectly. Here comes the massive run around the outside. They're going to pick off Joshua Wolf. They're going to approach Baker. It's not going to be enough, though, to clear them by the time they get into turn number 3, but it is enough to get Pataska's nose sticking out in front.
Facciaponte is not afraid to give some good pushes on that top line. So he is willing to try and do it. And you see him try and go it a bit off to the right. There's a reason they're doing that. There is a opening on the grills for the tape. That is set up on the right front part of the grill. Meaning if you go towards just a bit offset to the left, and in turn, make sure the open part of the grill is left, well, open when you push. And make sure you can push for a little bit longer compared to if you do it bumper to bumper flush.
You do have to be careful, though, that you don't be pushing when you're trying to look offset to the right. So if you're trying to push but you're on the angle like that, more often than not, it results in cars getting hooked around. We've seen it countless times in the past in both real life and here on the service. Really close off of turn number 4 as some smoke flies.
It takes a lot of practice and a lot of coordination, to say the very least. As Pataska gets a huge run, will he take the bottom? Just cut the nose off of Baker to take the lead. Baker had to get off the gas. That was close.
Oh, yes, it was. And it shows you these moves you have to do. They need to be decisive. You don't have time to really delay thinking, do I want to do this? You got to think, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And you got to do it quickly. Now you have two unorthodox motorsports machines trying to fight together along the outside. You got Mike Golightly, who is helping Adam Facciaponte, trying to go for the lead.
They still battle side by side up at the front. Drivers looking to get their track position early on in the run. Amongst them, Robertson, now a plus 18 of the race. He's the third car up on the top line as they try and work their way into the corner. Some of the drivers, though, looking to give a bit of an air cushion at the moment to try and make sure they don't overheat their equipment once again in the high speeds as you take on a look on board from Robertson.
Andreas Robertson just behind those two UDOX machines. Facciaponte is out in front. Will he drop down? He is staying up top right now with Golightly, so he could have dropped down if he made that decisive maneuver to chop the nose on Dallas Pataska. Decided not to make that move, though, so right now Facciaponte going to continue to lead that outside groove, with Pataska still trying to fight back on the bottom.
Yeah, and Pataska, we've seen how aggressive he can be. He has that help of the spotter. Have to see if he elects to just stay on the bottom side or elect to let the drivers above try and get the run. They might do so down the back straightaway. Golightly getting a bit of a run behind Facciaponte. 84 is clear. 77 also clear. Will they duck to the bottom? Yes, they do. Unorthodox is up to the front. And cars are clipping the apron. A bit of a checkoff. Wolf was the one who clipped it. Cars avoiding contact as we stay green.
That was absolutely fantastic driving from all involved to make sure they did not get into that one. It started when Joshua Wolf clipped the apron in turn number 3, slid sideways, and the 89 of Colin Martzoff taking evasive action around the outside.
And there were some cars getting contact. The 381 machine getting some bumps in the middle of the corner. That could have led to a chain reaction. That was Valverde. But all the drivers able to keep it green on the racetrack. That breaks up the pack into 3 mini groups for the time being, but 3 UDOX machines now up in the front, along with a TDR machine trying to get the race lead. Robertson looking to try and get up to the front in his Toyota Camry, getting the push this time from Ross Banfield. Will Banfield be able to get enough steam, or will he try and back off? Banfield not giving us huge of a shove at the moment as Robertson gets clear.
That means Robertson has now moved up 22 spots from the start of this race and is now up and into the lead. The question will be, how long will he be able to stay there? He's got 3 UDOX cars filling his mirrors behind them, one of them being Ross Banfield, the other being pushing him in the form of Adam Facciponti. So this will be interesting to see what these UDOX drivers are trying to do, maybe try to communicate with each other a little bit. Might try to get Banfield down to that inside line. It looks like Golightly almost trying to ease off a bit to create a little bit of a gap, but might be trying to get that power down because at this point in time, Pataska might be the one looking to take that gap away.
Then as though Pataska wants to get towards the front again, using that 777 machine to save a bit of fuel. And not really giving too much of a shove, waiting for the right moment. Pataska is, it looks like, once again here. This is the point of the run, though, where the handling comes in off the corner of turn number 2 and on entry of turn number 3. Again, these cars can get light. That's what caused the first caution flag, remember.
Indeed, I do. So when that back end starts to get light, especially when you try to swap lanes from one to another, it is very difficult to save it. It's even harder to save it without making contact with anybody else. So with these drivers being as tightly knit together as they are, it's going to be a dogfight up here if the wreck starts to occur.
For the lead, Adam Facciponti gets the push from Ross Banfield. Will he drop down this time? No, not going to leave Ross Banfield up on the top side. Might Golightly still pushing on the bottom side as Pataska looks to make it 3 wide down the back straightaway. Pataska has no help. More drivers making contact. Trouble. Martsoff gets spun around. Michael Lane around. It's the big one down the back straightaway. At least 4 or 5 cars. 6 drivers involved, some of them flipping.
That is going to be at least 8 cars caught up in this one. That is the big one. Just like we feared it was going to happen, and just as Pataska was making it 3 wide, there were also 3 wide right behind all of these drivers as well. That is what caused this. Puteklis was up the middle, and Michael Lane closed the gap when it was already filled, made contact, sent them around.
And you can see Hermila sent flipping along that as well, collecting a couple more cars in the process. But you have to wonder what Lane was thinking there. Might have thought it was just 2 wide, maybe.
I don't know. Spotter would have been telling him 3 wide, too low. He was fully alongside him. Maybe tried to pull a side draft off, and it just didn't work out the way he thought it would. There you can see it was really close, but again, maybe he was trying to get a bit of a side draft on. It's just so hard to deal when you're on the straightaway like that. It didn't end well for anybody. Good news is a few of those drivers do have fast pairs remaining that they can use now.
See one more look as Schlacker was involved in this incident. He'll have to use a faster pair. Here's the concern if you're some of the drivers, if you already used one by accident, that might be a factor. Take a listen on the onboard. This is the 08 machine. Schlacker taking multiple hits there, Nolan.
Absolutely. So Schlacker, a lot of damage, and you saw in front of him, it was a bit of a late dive from that, for that Udas Puteklis up the middle, but he was fully there by the time Lane came down. A lot of your lead lap cars currently in the lane right now, speaking of which. And it's going to be another race off of pit road. It looks like a lot of drivers trying to get back onto the same fuel cycle now.
Mike Golightly is the man who comes out with the lead. Had about half a second quicker pit stop than his teammates. Schlacker currently scored at second, but things to be adjusted on the track. The 08 machine did indeed was able to take the faster pair, but has to let drivers go. So it's going to take a few moments to try and sort things out on the racetrack here, but as we're already past the quarterway portion of this race here, Nolan, your thoughts on the action so far?
Well, it certainly has been interesting, and it seems that all of our wrecks tend to happen when cars start to go 3 wide. That's at least what happened back there. We've still been seeing that No, Mr. Pataska, he certainly is not afraid to go 3 wide. Again, he was having a very good run despite having absolutely nothing to help him on that outside line, but I fear that he would have gotten stalled out on the outside in the corner and might not have been able to get back down. So it was one of those situations you could really kind of see it coming from a mile off, literally and figuratively. But with these drivers, it'll be interesting to see how this will round off in this race as we get close to the end. And now it is going to be the 77 machine going down into the lane.
Robertson did not come down this time around, so it's going to take a little bit to sort things out, to say the very least here. But again, the biggest movers we've seen throughout the race: Robertson, Norden currently scored in second position, Kelly, Brock, Pataska, Baker, Johansson, Thompson, Facciponti, Rouge currently the top 10. This is big for the drivers who took the wave around now too, because they're on that couple of lap difference in fuel, yes, but they're also now essentially all bunched back up. Some of them had already dropped back from the lead pack a bit.
Indeed, so with drivers that have been falling back throughout this field, we did see in that big checkup in turn number 3 when Joshua Wolf almost spun on the apron. That checked a mass portion of the field up as well. So with everything kind of shaping up as it is, it's going to be interesting to see how things will shape up. We are just over a quarter of the way through this race. Still not even close, though, to the halfway point.
Indeed here. As we'll take a step aside for a moment. When we come back, we'll have more action of the Major Series European Split Daytona 500. Live on RaceBot TV, the iRacing Esports Network. Stay tuned. About to go green at Daytona International Speedway as Robertson is in front of the field. Shea Norden up to second. Kelly, Brock, Pataska, Baker, Rouge, Johansson, Crum, Mickey is your top 10 at the moment. So we're all set to go racing once more for the Major Series Daytona 500 on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceBot TV. Off and away goes the TDR machine. We're back to racing for the World Center of Racing.
That was a beautiful jump from Andreas Robinson off of the line. He pulled a significant gap. Unfortunately for him, though, this means that Mike Kelly, who's actually blocking Dallas Pataska to the outside, Pataska ducking down low. He's got a massive run now on Robertson as they close in with the draft. That was an aggressive block there, though, from Mike Kelly up to the outside. And now Kelly does not have any help to get that run he thought he would around the outside of the track.
Pataska now boxed in a little bit with Robertson. Not elected to go up the top side yet, though, as Dawson Brock gets the run along with Bobrovsky. on the bottom side. Up to the top goes Pataska. Brock goes with. Brock ditches him once more, side by side for the race lead as Kelly now comes to help the 23.
Well, things seem to be getting a little bit more physical now here, Justin, as they enter into the, the more mid-stage portion of this race. Now around in lap 65. Kelly now is going to have to try to work with Pataska around the outside to try to find the speed. Right now, you got your top three single file on that inside groove. It is Dawson Brock that is currently pushing Andreas Robertson.
Right now, the top three able to get up in front of that top line for the bottom line, referring to specifically. But already two more come up to block Pataska. Bobrovsky and Brock want to go up towards the front, make it 3 wide for second position. Pataska on his own on the top side. Bobrovsky in the middle, on the bottom Robertson. Pataska makes it 2 wide once more. But man, oh man, did multiple people have the same thought at the same time.
I was thinking in my head, oh boy, here we go again. Pataska, he really likes taking it 3 wide around the outside in this one, doesn't he? The only problem with that is he never has any help with him when he's going on the outside. So that's the reason why Pataska really hasn't been able to get to the front yet using moves like that, is the fact that he doesn't have the help that he needs to make it work.
Lonnie Finch is smoking on the bottom of the racetrack. We stay green as he goes off to the pit lane. Remember, Finch was involved in one of the first caution flags of the Daytona 500 today. So he rolls his way towards the pit lane while they continue side by side in the lead group. Pataska getting help from Kelly now. Also lined up in that group, Gabriel Rude's now in the conversation once again with its gold 323 numbers. Stuck side by side with Shane Norton at the moment on that top line.
So with Shane Norton trying to fight around the inside line, and once again you got your 2 lanes that are forming up and each one trying to find the different grooves to race in. There is a little bit of a gap between really the top 6 or 7 and the rest of this field. If that closes up, it could get big really, really quickly with the runs that can come around the outside line. Then, of course, you might have drivers that might try to do what they call is push the pusher. When you try to bump draft a car, let's bump draft to somebody else. That never, ever works out. And so far, we haven't seen it today. But once we reach that halfway point, you just know that more than likely somebody's going to try it. 3 wide in the background, though. And Michael Hagstrom gets squeezed out by the 14 machine of Alexander Wiggert.
Wiggert right now in the 14 machine coming up. You're taking a look as the 11 machine sees all of this happening up in front. Wiggert, one of the quicker cars in practice, has one beat-up race car, but is not afraid to make moves in that 14 machine. Take a look at how much front damage there is for the Swede.
Not to mention, he's got left rear damage as well on that car, so despite all of that damage, he's doing a fantastic job keeping pace with these cars up ahead of him. He's currently in the tow of Ross Banfield. It's going to be the question, though, if he'll be able to make anything work or if he's only sticking up front because he has that draft.
Yeah, that's the major question here is if you end up losing that tow from behind, there's the chance you lose the draft completely with that type of damage, so that's got to be an absolute concern. Here's the thing. Drivers might try and drive around you if you've got the damage. They just don't have the luxury of trying to squeeze them out at the moment. So, going to have to see how things shape out as the run progresses. By the way, Dawson Brock leads this time by. Pataska, though, getting a bit of a run on the top side again. Kelly built a bit of steam behind him in the 2 machine.
So it seems like everybody's getting a little bit more dicey now as the runs start to develop, as the field starts to kind of break away from some of the other drivers that are a bit more damaged and slightly more off pace, or just willing to hang around in the back for now. So things are getting a little more dicey now, though, than they were certainly at lap number 1, Justin. And we're still not even halfway in.
Coming to 130 laps to go, in fact, yes. It's just been that type of a race as right now the bottom side carrying a bit more momentum. They will lap somebody, though. That is Martsov that they will lap. Who goes up on the top side. That is a massive difference of speed. 195 for the pack, 168 for the 89 machine because, well, that car has no front end.
It sounds like he's running in third right now. It sounds like he's trapped in third gear right now for me, which is, that's not what you want to see either. So good job on Martzal for getting out of the way in a hurry. And I'm trying to wonder, how in the world did he come into missing that front flip in the first place? Last I checked with him, his car was looking fine.
Remember, though, there was that incident with the caution flag. That big incident collecting a few drivers a while ago, but these drivers so far yet to take a green flag pit stop cycle except for a couple of drivers. 128 to go this upcoming time by, though, as the chess match continues for these drivers in their strategies here. A lot of the competition yet to use one faster pair. The drivers you see up on your screen amongst them.
A chess match. That really is a great analogy for, you know, a race like this. It really is a game of the mind. You really need to be smart in order to win these races. The difficult part about this version of chess is all the pieces happen to be moving at the exact same time. It's not one driver waiting for somebody else. Everybody's moving at once. So that is what's different and what separates this chess match from so many others.
Yep, absolutely. As right now, the pack continues to work its way into turn number 1. Still, everyone getting to rhythm. One of the drivers that used a faster pair, Michael Lane, he's entering the picture in the 62 machine. He's up inside the top 8 at the moment.
So Michael Lane, also that driver that was the cause of the bigger by shutting the gap that was already full, if you'll remember. Right up front, more contact behind the big trouble going around. It's Michael Lane. Caution comes out. Big crash in the background. At least 4 or 5 cars involved again in this one. And that will no doubt put some drivers out of this race. I think they wrecked again behind them when they were trying to back it down.
They were going 3-1 in the corner, and you see right there the 14 get loose, triggers everything, and Lane gets some contact, and 2 of the kinetic racing machines involved in this one.
So a big mess in the back straightaway. This time it was nothing of Michael Lane's doing. That 14 just got a bit too loose. Clipped one of those drivers that was down at the bottom. That driver slid up and absolutely sent Michael Lane around, and nothing the 62 machine could do to save that one. This will be our 4th caution of the day, I believe it is.
Yes, indeed. On lap number 73, coming to 74. So this we'll have to see again now. If drivers elect to pit because, again, we've seen this the first time there was a difference before in pit strategies. Do you expect that type of difference now?
It really is complicated at this point in time because our cautions, they are slowly starting to grow closer together. We'll have to see what will happen because they did come down not terribly long ago. It was only about 15 laps or so. It does look, though, like a lot of drivers are not going to take the risk that there will be another caution soon after. Looks like just about every driver on the lead lap again is coming down. And in fact, that is going to be the case.
Indeed, a lot of drivers electing to take service, get matched up on the same pit stop cycles. Few drivers do stay out on the racetrack looking to take wave rounds. Ponte also staying out along with Go Lightly at the moment. However, they were on different pit stop cycles in the first place before. Some drivers come into the boxes. Brock comes out first with Vavrovsky. Those drivers just took 2 tires on their pit stop service. So did Ruse and Banfield. Pataska took 4.
So interesting call there from Dallas Pataska. Usually the general call, if you're this early into a run, is right sides only. The left sides, while they do play a massive factor, they are of course not as important, so to speak, as the right side. So if you have a choice to change only lefts or only rights, you can bet that all these drivers will always take rights every day of the week. But taking 4 tires, it is an interesting call, but it will give them that much more grip off of the start.
Indeed, it's going to make the grip levels much more, but we talked about this a little bit. Of course, with the major series, A lot of drivers, and I mean a lot of drivers, took place in this year's edition of the Daytona 500. Somewhere upwards of 350 total drivers in the international, European, and American splits registered to try and compete for the top split spots and overall spots on the grid this year. That is a lot of drivers looking to try and compete here at Daytona, and shows again the commitment and growth of the major series here on the iRacing service.
Well, I can imagine that apart from the Indy 500, which is going to be coming up later on this season, you know, the Daytona 500 is definitely going to be one of the events that you're going to see a whole lot of people register for even only this race, because it's just such a prestigious event. Like you said at the top of the broadcast, it is one of the most famed events in the motorsport world from other events such as, you know, even the Le Mans 24-hour, the Indy 500, which of course is a Triple Crown event. It's such a massive venue, and it's such an honor to be able to win here. Let's face it, everybody dreams of winning a race like this. But there can only be one winner, so to have so many drivers register, it is good to see that, you know, the growth that's been coming to the series so far.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you're one of those drivers, are you not, Nolan?
That is correct, I am.
Talk about a little bit about that, if you can, about what you expect for your action tonight.
Well, I unfortunately am not going to be in one of these pro splits. I'm one of the sportsman drivers, but I would expect it to be kind of similar to this. It's going to be a long race, so, you know, kind of don't try to push it all out early on. You know, save it a little bit in the early runs, because you don't need to be pushing it 3 wide on just the first lap of the race. Kind of settle back, take it easy, maybe have a glass of water here or there, and start to push later on. That tends to be the strategy. It seems like a lot of drivers, though, here, they are beginning to push earlier on than I would have thought they would.
Yeah, I was going to say, the aggression level has been very high since it feels like lap 35, lap 40. That, of course, leads to potential incidents. So your thoughts on that at this point?
Well, from the aggression that we've been seeing, you'd think they were racing for stage points almost, if that was a thing in this series. It is not, of course, in the Daytona 500. Lights are off with the pace car. We are going green this time by, but it is curious to see how the mindset has developed. I think it's one of those cases where you got one driver that tends to make that extra move, and it sets everybody off in a chain reaction. And in this case, it seems like Dallas Pataska seems to really like setting off those chain reactions.
I don't think he's trying to set them off. It's more so he's got the help of a spotter, knows the exact distances of cars. As long as those cars are aware of what's going on, those moves are possible. It's just the fact that you also at the same time have to deal with so many moving parts on that chessboard we referred to about 20 laps ago, where someone's going to end up eventually flipping that chessboard upside down.
Oh, yes. That is absolutely what's going to happen. We've already seen a few of those little pieces flipped upside down as it was in this race. And, you know, like you said, it's only going to be a matter of time before the whole board follows suit. And I would expect that's what we will be starting to see come about lap 140, lap 150, somewhere along those lines.
Now, one thing to note for the drivers who have been involved in incidents so far and have already used a fast repair and have been involved in a second incident, there is a minimum speed they must hit. The minimum safe speed for this year's Majors Daytona 500 is 53-second lap times. If you don't hit those times, your race is essentially done in terms of minimum speed. 29 cars are on the lead lap. Early launch for Brock this time as we're backing away from Daytona.
Again, though, you don't want to really get those huge launches off the line, because it means you're more susceptible to getting overtaken on a huge run, because drivers don't tend to want to lift off. They tend to want to go, go, go. What Gabriel Roos will do here, though, since they are in the corner, he is going to slot in line with Brock and instead elect to give him the push. So you got your top three running single file. Here comes Pataska with, again, no help around the outside, using that momentum to try to push him up to third. It looked like Roos wanted to get up to block. It's going to be second. Here comes Brock trying to block 2 lines at once, and he ends to take the low line.
And that's not something you can really do effectively compared to last year's package and this year's package. If you try and protect the bubble, as it's called, there's the chance of incidents. It's been talked about by real-world drivers that the amount of momentum you get from behind is too difficult to stop if you're the lead car for those types of big-time blocks. That could have been costly there. Brock's holding the bottom side now as Pataska still elects to lead the top side.
It can be very costly indeed. It's been costly already in some races. It was tried a couple times in races like the duels, and it does not end well, let me tell you what. So, it's interesting to see what will happen here. Gabriel Russo elected to take that outside line, and Dallas Pataska does lift off a bit and doesn't give him a really big shove entering turn 3. But with the speed that's coming out, it's probably a good thing, because if he did try to give him a big shove, if he isn't expecting it, it can be just enough to send him around.
Pataska giving a bit of an aero bubble push this time to Ruse up on the top side, looking to try and gain some momentum. On the bottom side, Dawson Brock. Brock still holds on to the line of the corner entry. Again, you can see how much that run dies off. They're running the exact same speed, but again, the bottom is shorter distance. But in turn, that speed pops up at the top line where you have that side draft a bit coming from the outside line of the wall.
Indeed, so that outside line, they're still going to be looking to try to pick their way through to the front. They only got Ross Banfield on the bottom trying to keep third place on the inside line, and he's certainly willing to hold on to that spot as long as he can. Still not getting right to the back end of Trevor Vorovsky, it is good to note. So Banfield looking to maybe take it a little bit easier here on the restart while that outside line continues to try to battle around.
We talked about it a little bit. If you're the lead car, you burn about an extra gallon or so of fuel. That's about a lap or two difference. So you kind of also want to try and line up and keep that fuel number safe, because right now, if you're one of those lead cars, you're burning a lot of it. Ruse getting a nose up in front of Brock at the front of the field, you see up on your screen, but just nowhere to take the run again up on the top side, dropping all the way back side by side as you follow along with Ross Banfield.
Well, this has been some great racing so far. It's been hard, it's been aggressive. We've had times where we've eased off and they've gotten right back into the throttle. So what we've been seeing here has been absolutely fantastic. It's put on a very good show for us today. Gabriel Roos has got that momentum around the outside line. Brock trying to come back, but Pataska on the backstretch will be able to push Brock through to the front of the field. The question will be, will Roos try to chop down across Brock's nose? He is going to be clear, just barely entering 3. He's electing to stay on the top side, though, to give Pataska a hand.
Well, you got to remember, during that championship season, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian Schauder had Kinetic Racing logos on his race car. So, it helps with Dallas Pataska being a teammate of Schauder, who is running the American splits this season, to get that bit of help. Ruse, up at the front, still elects to help the 23 machine. It just looks like at the same time here, too, Nolan, that they're both set up better on the top. Pataska with a bit of a bobble.
Oh, he got way to the outside wall, and he's still pinned up there. That is not good for Gabriel Roos. He's now losing all his momentum. Here comes Andreas Robertson up the middle. Dallas Pataska getting left to dry around the outside line as they go 3 wide. And now Robertson is going to be the driver to try to help Gabriel Roos up to the front. Got one lap car that's going to go right to the apron to get out of the way, and it looks like he might be going down to the pits. In fact, he is. And now this has allowed Dawson Brock to get a brilliant lead over that outside line.
And again, that could have been close. Pataska able to now run in the middle line, trying to get a bit of air. He's lined up with Norden at the moment. Robertson looking to try and make a poke as well, as he continues to try and carry that middle line behind with Norden. Still side by side down the back straightaway once more, coming 116 laps to go. And Brock's been handling this very well. Since trying to pull off that block, he's kept it nice and calm, just carried the bottom side and has made it work this whole run.
What's really helped him is that Gabriel Roos decided to help out his Shane Norton, Dallas Pataska, and then Pataska hung out to drive 3 wide on the outside lane when he bobbled in 2. So that is what's really helped Brock to maintain that lead. Now, though, that lead might be threatened now that Andreas Robertson has caught up to Roos and will be able to help push him around the outside.
He does have a Lions car, Brock does as well, helping him and Vorosky on that bottom line. But Vorosky looking like he's trying to poke his nose around a little bit, try and get the car cool, backing off a little bit to leave about a quarter of a car length distance to leave some clean or clear air at least a little bit to cool down the race car. The track is also cooling down as this event progresses down to 85 degrees, Nolan. That is a plus 12 drop since the start of the broadcast.
They're approaching Michael Lane now, who in that beaten up 62 machine is running 54 second laps. You said, Justin, that the safe lap time was 53, was it not?
That was it in terms of what's listed for the major series, but we'll have to see if Lane is put off the racetrack as he continues to run around up on that top line. That top line is also instructed for the drivers to be where you go at the moment if you're lap traffic. Should note that some of the drivers, again, are trying to stay at the back of this lead pack at the moment. At the back of the lead pack at the moment includes drivers like Facci Ponte in 26, Go Lightly in 25th, as well as the Bombshell Motorsports machine. So, the strategies by the different teams still in play. A lot of the teams, their strategies are push and stay at the front.
I think what Facciponte and Go Lightly's strategies might have been, because I did take note under the caution, they came down a lap later than the other lead lap cars, so they have deliberately put themselves at the back of the field there, it looks like. They might have seen what was going on up front in the last green flag run and decided that it wasn't worth it to stay out front there when you got so long left to go. And now they're just trying to kind of ease off and run it around in the back as long as they can. It seems like that's what they were trying to do. It's what they are doing right now. Now it's just Ross Banfield, the only UDOX car up front. He's currently running in about 4th or 5th place there, 3rd on the inside line.
At this point now, that brings up the good question of how do you divide this race up from here? Because we've seen a lot of the caution flags, yes, mix up potential strategies, but we went green on lap number 78. There are still 112 to go this time by, so as these cars go 2 and 3 wide, at this point, what do you do in terms of the pit strategy the rest of the way? Do you try and just stay with the pack, or do you as a group try and divide things up evenly in terms of lap distance?
It might be a good idea to try and maybe divvy things up amongst your own team to try to find a way back up to the front. 112 laps to go, and we went green on lap 78. It's a very complicated equation to try to figure out, because with your fuel windows being roughly 40 to 45 laps on a full tank, it's definitely not going to equate to an even number of stops. I would assume at least one splash and dash right now if this race continues to go green.
Or someone trying to split it up in half.
Very true. Yes, very true.
Following on board with Dallas Pataski, he tried to force a third line for a moment, elected to not take it 3 wide. So going a bit more patient now for this middle portion. There's a driver behind him, want to know. Remember we said Claude Berval at one point was 1 lap down in this race? He's now in 10th position, the next car back behind the 23.
So it looks like, Claude Berval, one of those drivers again that did not have the best of luck early on. He is now beginning to pick his way through it. It really shows you how big the shuffle at this track can be. You can go so far to the back and you can go up so far to the front quickly if you know how to play those moves to your advantage and make them work. And, with it being caught up in the crash, it looks like that fast repair has really helped to keep his race intact as it is. Right now, he's contentedly running to that outside line, and even though there's a huge gap on the bottom, he is not elected to take it just yet. It looks like he's thinking about it, though.
Yeah, choosing middle for a split second, now goes back up to the top side, as Weigert now takes that line and fills it underneath the quarter panel of the 56 machine. Under 110 laps to go now at this point, and the top line starting to gain steam once more. Gabriel Roos now getting a bit of a run up high.
And one more car that they're going to be putting another lap down, Michael Hagstrom, who they're going to be going 3 wide with around the outside. It is such a massive speed difference that shows just how critical damage on your car can be. when you don't have the draft. And there you can see a very, very clear picture of that right there. It's not a pretty sight for Hagstrom, who even if he does catch the draft, I doubt will be able to hang on to it.
Yeah, indeed. One thing to note as well, that bump drafting is legal, but there is the risk of if you cause an incident with a bump draft, it will be looked at in race incidences. So that's something drivers have to keep in mind. No one's electing to really bump draft at the moment, just keeping it calm, clean, some spare distance between the cars, and just trying to get yourself into the right pit window at the moment, or to the pit stops rather, I should say. So again, they're just logging laps as plainly as it can be. They're trying to make sure they get to that pit stop window where it's going to get interesting.
Well, that's kind of the way these races go. They tend to be a little more antsy within the first 50 laps. Then from about lap 50 to 150, things start to kind of settle out as drivers get themselves laid back into a nice rhythm. You know, maybe a little bit of shuffling for position here and there, but overall, everybody's kind of just playing it nice, playing it safe. Then in the last 50 laps, that's when the fireworks really tend to start. And that really seems to me how these races tend to go, and because we're definitely in one of those, shall we say, cool down phases right about now.
The calm before the storm, almost as it's called known.
Ah, yes. Everybody loves a good storm at Daytona, don't they?
Some people do. Some
the
don't.
Drivers probably don't.
Yeah. Especially with last year, but right now Brock still having to deal with the top line, getting some runs. Ruse again makes it side by side. Again, though, not enough momentum up on the top side in this middle portion of this stint. Who are you keeping an eye on as we approach this halfway point of this race to try and be someone you think that we haven't talked about too much about, but potentially as a contender by the end of the race?
I would honestly say maybe Mike Kelly. He's been running very consistently in the top 10 throughout this entire race. He's never really dropped back, but he hasn't worked his way to the front either. I think he might be one of those sleepers. He's just waiting in the wings right now and waiting for any kind of mistake, and then in the last little while, that's when he's going to pounce. One other driver that I want to look at, or two drivers I want to look at really, is Dawson Brock and Gabriel Ruse, because they've been running up front this entire fuel run, so no doubt they are off cycle on their fuel strategy by now with the rest of the leaders by a good lap, at least, you would think.
Give or take, yes, at this moment. As right now, a bit of a checkup on the top line as the 333 machine, a little bit up the racetrack. One thing to note, the top four positions at the moment, or four of the top five rather, Brock, Ruse, Vrosky, and Banfield are all on two-tire pit stop calls. The rest of the cars inside the top 10 have four tires here. So that in turn might be a factor in terms of how the cars handle, especially at the up top near contact for the race lead.
Things are starting to pick up a little bit, getting a little bit more antsy, and the tire calls, that can be one of the key factors here as well. So whether you're on four tires or, two fresh tires, it doesn't affect the most at a track like this, but it does affect enough that late in a run, it can get a little bit more noticeable. One thing of note as well is when you're on more worn tires, especially if you're on all four worn tires, it could really affect your pit entry as you'd have to back that braking point up a significant margin to avoid sliding out of the pit lane and into the infield grass.
That actually leads to a great discussion point here because they call it Calamity Corner here at Daytona International Speedway because there's a chance for calamity amongst cars in their different lines for the braking. What's your method to enter the pit lane at Daytona International Speedway cleanly without getting hit from behind and without speeding at the cone?
Well, what I would say is don't let off immediately. I keep my foot in it personally, even when I'm below the apron, and then start to brake once I'm well below the yellow lines. That way you're not getting run over for cars that are still on the lead lap, but you're keeping a decent amount of speed. And if you can time it right, you might get that back end stepped out just a little bit, but it is going to be just enough that you'll be able to keep it down to the pit speed limit by the time you reach that cone. And you're going to be taking tires anyway, so may as well smoke them up a bit more on the entry.
And do you try and take the entry low or high? That's another thought process some teams have. There isn't as much space, say, as at Talladega to enter the pits, but do you try and go all the way, like at the top of the line, all the way to the top of the pit entry, or should you try and dive it in along the pit wall, or inside wall, rather?
I try to keep it kind of in the middle, in a sense, if that makes any sort of sense. You know, leave yourself with a bit of room that if you end up overshooting it a little bit, you do have some room to keep it in the pit lane and not slide out into the infield, but low enough that, but still high enough that you can keep to the right side of the pit lane so it doesn't cause any issues for drivers that might be trying to slight their pit boxes.
Taking a look on board, Mike Kelly, at the moment, one of the Can-Am racing machines. Again, he's been one of the drivers who was up on the top side much of the run, but is now back to the bottom side. Kelly's had a pretty quiet and efficient race. He stayed inside the front half of the field much of the day today in that 2 car.
Very much so. So Mike Kelly has been having a very decent run for him all day. He's currently 4 spots up from the 11th that we saw him in at the start. So he's been having a decent run, and he's really just been kind of waiting in the wings right now for something to happen. He's been turning very clean laps, though. I would like, though, to turn attention to that track temperature. It was about 97 degrees, he said, at the start of this race.
Yep.
It's dropped even further to 85 degrees now. So the track is continuing to cool off a little bit here.
And that's going to happen because the local in-sim time is around 6:15 p.m. So it is starting to get towards the evening a bit here at Daytona as they get around the lap traffic. So there is the chance the lights will turn on here towards the end of this event. Couple drivers are starting to cut their way up through the field at the moment. Liam Sheen amongst them for Unorthodox. Some of the Kinetic Racing machines are also starting to come up through the field. All of this just behind Mike Kelly. As you take a look at Sheen, he's now up on the top side, just getting around the 14.
And as we approach the tri-oval for the 100th time, that is it. We are halfway through 100 in the books, 100 to go at Daytona International Speedway for the Major Series Daytona 500 in the European region. Dawson Brock continuing to lead up in front, and Gabriel Roos still hanging on to second place.
Broski, Robertson, Banfield, Norden, Kelly, Burval, Pataska, Sheen now inside the top 10 at the moment here at Daytona. So work our way through the evening portion of the Daytona 500. Going to become the question who's going to be there all the way to the end of today's race, but it's getting interesting to see who's making their way up through the field. Again, some of the different cars are starting to go. Pataska had a bit of a boost off the corner in 9th position last time by, trying to get to the back bumper of Kelly.
So with that in mind, we have to remember that fuel window, it is slowly beginning to creep up on drivers now. They've been out here for what seems to be a very good, just about 20 laps or so. So with that in mind, we are now in the second half of the fuel window, or in the, we are in the second half of the fuel window here. So with that opening up, pit stops, they're not going to be that far off. Maybe about 15 or so laps from here on out for your race leaders.
And you're taking a look at the biggest movers so far. Many of the drivers have either avoided incidents or stayed up or been able to cut their way up to the front. Many of the top 10 drivers didn't start there, Nolan. At least half the top 10 in double-digit position gains.
In fact, every driver in the top 10 did not start in the top 10, save for, it looks like, Gabriel Roos. So with everything that's been going on, it certainly seems like your top 10 filled with drivers that were not there at the start of this race. The biggest move in your top 10 is one Shane Norton moving up a whopping 26 spots, currently sitting 7th place.
Indeed, the pole sitter is currently 16th. Christopher Ems at the moment, 2nd place. Berquist is currently in 13th position. As a bit of a side draft that time from Robertson, nearly hitting the door of Bobrovsky. That was a bit of aggressive as he tries to keep the top line rolling. It's a couple cars down a bit in terms of distance now on that top line. Might be why he's trying to side draft so hard.
So it looks like the aggression's starting to pick up again. We're now in the second half of the race. It's time to get moving if you want to try to find your way to the front. You know, with the lap slowly beginning to wind on down, this race is certainly flying by here. It would seem we've got, it looks like a two-car tandem almost on that outside group, and then a bit of a gap down to Shane Norton, who's sitting third on the outside line, with Claude Belval trying to close that gap as well. Behind them, Liam Sheen is still trying to find something as Gal Valverde nearly makes contact with David Baker.
Now you're taking a look at that now up on your screen. Valverde's the car on the top. The 33 is Baker on the bottom side. There is a slight touch bit of right front fender damage on that 33 machine, but again, more cars are lined up on the bottom. That top line has seen that amount of machines up there basically cut in half. So drivers are starting to sort the way down to the bottom, it looks like, knowing that pit stops are coming up pretty soon.
That certainly seems to be the case, and with that top line dwindling, you know, everybody wants to be down on the pit road at the same time for a pit cycle because you don't want to be going down there by yourself. But the way it is right now, there just isn't room for all of the top guys to get down there unless, you know, you have other drivers that are slow enough to let them in. So it looks like we might have two main laps for pit cycles. You'll have the inside line, and then the drivers that were on the top lane coming down next time around, they just might have to hold on for one more.
And these cars, mind you, too, are trying to hold on in terms of how they handle, because some of them are getting a bit wiggly, Nolan, to say the least.
Oh yes, that's something that we've been keeping eyes on, as well as the fact that some of the cars getting a little more loose off of turn. It seems like particularly turn number 2 seems to be where cars are getting a little more loose than others. And it looks like almost a little bit in the tri-oval as well, a little bit of wiggle going on there as well. We've seen a few drivers kind of just touching that yellow line, giving it a little kiss on the inside. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, that's got to be the tire wear, you would think, playing into effect now. So I would think it's going to be at least right sides. I would assume, though, 4 tires for everybody on their pit cycles.
Yeah, because it's only about a half a second to a second of difference between 4 tires and no tires in the pit stops on the super speedways in terms of going from empty to full in terms of the tanks. And Bobrovsky's ducking down. Here come the drivers as they come down for their pit stop with 93 laps to go.
So a couple drivers coming down, 2 of the Grizzly machines, including Bobrovsky and Baker, are down to the lane. Got Johansson, Wolf, Henderson, got one more down with them as well. That was Dawson Brock, your race leader, that joined them. So on lap 108 is when the pit cycle is going to take place. We only had about 6 drivers come down that time. That has kind of divvied up your top field a little bit more. It would not surprise me if within the next while we would see a bunch more drivers coming down with them.
I wouldn't be surprised either, as off and away they go. In terms of the pit stop times, everyone taking 4 tires and fuel. Off and away they go. But the lead pack did not come down this time, as you see them rumble their way through the tri-oval.
So it looks like some of the drivers might have come down when they weren't saving fuel as much. They had to kind of keep their foot in the more to either A, keep up, or B, you know, hold on to the lead, because I did notice one of your race leaders came down, and as well as that, a few drivers are actually further down in the field, but a lot of the mid-pack runners didn't actually come down to join them. So it looks like a couple guys maybe pushing a little bit more than they had to, and that's what's allowed, you know, your lead field to kind of stay out there a little bit longer.
Remember, though, too, the Torque Freak racing machines and the Grizzly Motorsports cars are teammates on the racetrack. So there's the chance they were talking to Jaron and thought, you know what, let's divide this race up from here. 93 laps to go, an hour 40 or so, or try and get to a situation where they can have less fuel for the final pit stop and then go from there in case this race goes green. They are, however, only about an 1/8 or so in front of the race leaders at the moment on the track.
Indeed, both those cars and the race leaders are now on the back straightaway, but it does seem like, you know, the Torque Freak Racing and the Grizzly Motorsports machines are playing the long game at this point in time, which at this rate, That seems to be where this race is going. It's definitely going to be going green, as this is the longest green flag run that we have had all race. So it's time to start thinking longest start. It's time to stop trying to think that we're going to get a caution within a lap or so. You got to start thinking, you got to play the long game at this point, because that, at this point, is where this race is going.
About 32 or 33 laps now into this run for those keeping track at home. We went green on lap number 78. On the start of lap 111 now at the moment. Ross Banfield is the leader. Mike Kelly in second. Dallas Pataska's also made his way to the bottom. More drivers getting wiggly up on the top line. Ruse, along with Robertson, both had a major bobble on the top line. They're really bobbling down the backstretch.
Gabriel Ruse losing spots and losing a fast contact, and there's going to be huge contact. Did he just hang on to that one? No, he is not. Back to the inside, back up top. That's going to be a massive wreck on the back straightaway. More cars spinning around. Caution comes out. That is lifesaver for those cars that just pitted, and for the drivers that were one lap down. Adam Fetchy-Ponte was caught up in that one. Almost held on to it, and then just got hit again to finish it off.
See the 007 machine up on the top side. Trying to check up as all of this happened. That's one of the TVR machines, but it was the 333 that caused all of it. Lots of accident avoidance for some of the drivers coming up. But that really shakes up the strategy in this race all of a sudden with this incident. Really does, as you take a look at Robertson, who was amongst those drivers right in front. Two teammates with contact.
Oh, that is not what you want to see at all. And that was the case of one driver was coming up, one driver was coming down, and they both went around. And Ruse, he almost held on to that one and then just got hit again right up the back end, and that's what really finished him off. But that was significant. That is significant. Like, this is huge for the pit strategy right now, especially for the cars that just pitted. That could very well put them back near the front of this field with the other drivers coming down to pit now.
And you mentioned the strategy up to lap 45, correct? That potentially might mean if we go green and you save fuel, there's a chance it's a one-stopper now. If you can get to that fuel at 45, that is the main key, if you can.
Indeed. So this will be interesting to see how this will play out. One driver to note, Liam Sheen, who, if you remember, was one lap down earlier. He was third place at the caution.
That is huge for Liam Sheen, as he's now down along with the rest of the drivers. You see them come into the pit lane here. So with all the wiggle, Bobrovsky will now cycle to the race lead with Dawson Brock along with the rest of the grouping. So this is going to be pretty substantial. Now it's going to be a tight fuel margin for the drivers who came down and have stayed out.
This really changes everything, this caution right here. That was a close race back out of the pits between Mike Kelly. I believe that might have been the 333 he was with on the exit there, but very close between some drivers exiting the pit lane. See a few drivers that are still down in the pits, no doubt probably getting some repairs on their damages. Some drivers, of course, have already used their fast repairs from earlier today. So, my goodness, though, that was absolutely massive. I don't think that caution could have come out at a better time for those lead lap cars.
Yeah, and it's still in the case where we might see drivers try and go for a two-stop as well with how tight it is. However, that would be an interesting call either way. With that, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your next upcoming restart. You're watching the Major Series Daytona 500 European Split in today's race as we get all set to go for more racing action.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic, real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Simulated racing can be awesome, but it can also be kind of a free-for-all. Interestingly, auto racing faced the same problem in its earlier days. Whether it was on the back roads, the beaches, or the city streets, the racing was always fun. But there was always a certain level of chaos or danger, until some folks came along and put some order to all of this. Stuff like official racetracks, regulations about weight and equipment, and enforcement of standards. That's what gave us high-speed excitement, fast-paced action, and photo finishes. That's when racing became racing. The guys over at iRacing.com have made the same transformation in the world of sim racing. See, iRacing analyzes the performance and results of each driver in every race, so you can be sure you're always placed in races where the competition will be tight, and that those reckless drivers who ruin it for us all will be kept in the pits. Not to mention that with members in over 130 countries already in their vast community, you can find races day and night, so you can always get in the action. You can even join a league of your favorite series, and work your way up to one of 7 world championships, offering over $500,000 in prize money. And since updates are always automatic, you don't have to worry about software and can focus on the track. Zip up your fire suit and check out iRacing.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Daytona International Speedway for more coverage of the major series, Daytona 500. On iRacing Esports Network and Race Spot TV, Justin Prince alongside Nolan Rempo, Hugo Leeds in the director's seat as we get the 1-to-go signal coming to 85 laps to go. Just discussing potential pit strategy on the racetracks. It's right now a situation where it's looking like, very most likely, a 3-stop situation. For these drivers at the very most, it's going to become a fuel mileage situation with the way it's all cycled out. Nolan, we were discussing this in terms of the realistic numbers once again and double checking with our team sources. Again, it's looking at the very most. Some drivers might go up to the high 30s in terms of distance on this stint to try and cycle things out, meaning it is looking like a case where many drivers might try and go for multiple stops.
Yeah, so with all this, taking place, it definitely cycled things out. We were estimated originally about, 40 to 45 laps. Turns out we were a little off on our estimations. Turns out it's actually more of a 30-lap run. If you're running out in front, about 36 to 38 laps if you're further down in the midfield, saving a little bit of fuel. So it's going to be a lot tighter than we first realized, as it turns out.
It's going to be very tight either way, even in the first place. So it becomes the question, how will all these strategies play out? It's going to become an interesting race from here. Bobrovsky off and away, brings him the green flag. Dawson Brock is up on the top side. So 3 teammates in control of the top 4 positions off the launch.
And it was a pretty big split between your outside group. You can see, you only have Dawson Brock, Joshua Wolf on the outside, with Henderson moving up to help them. A lot of other drivers are actually elected to stay on the inside here. And that inside line now begins to form up as they reach the back straightaway. And now a massive run from the outside. 3 cars clearing your race leader, 3 wide, meanwhile, down for 4th place.
Some massive runs. Dallas Bataska up the middle. Kelly ditched up on the top side. As Bataska gets help and Bataska gets turned. Caution flag is out. He collects Budaklis. Ruse also with contact. And again for the second time, Bravo in it, and more cars crash into it.
Oh dear, that was never going to end well. The big it was a case of, you can see how big of a gap there was between a lot of drivers, and it unfortunately just ended poorly because they all got to run at the same time, tried to make moves, and just didn't end well. And it looked like it was in the middle of that 3 wide group to start things off. Bataska, did he come down? Or did Bobrovsky go up? It was a little bit of both, and it sent drivers around, brought out the caution once more. Not what they wanted to see at all in the start of this little green flag run in the second half of the race.
And look at all the cars that are at the back of the field. These are the ones trying to keep the cars clean, mind you, and save their fast repairs. Some of the Bombshell Motorsports and Kinetic Racing machines had nowhere to go as that all developed and had to slam on the brakes.
Look at Christopher Ems, who rear-ended the Schlacker in the middle of that, and I was looking at Liam Sheen, who locked it down big time, got a little bit of a tap on the back end, but for the most part, had a fantastic job of avoiding this whole mess. Watch this development in front of him. He goes right to the outside wall. Here comes the 666 up to the outside. A little bit of a brush with the wall, but you know, it could have been a lot worse for Sheen, so good job on him to read that wreck and try to just lock it down and keep it out as best as he could from that wall. All things considered, very little damage on that car.
At least on the right side. Then you look at the back, it's crushed in, but a few drivers did stay out here. And now this is where the strategy comes into play again. Staying out, Henderson, Wolf, Brock also staying out, Baker, Roval also staying out at least this time by. Valverde also stays out. Fasci Ponti, who we understand is trying to save his faster pair, stayed out, along with the rest of the drivers. Everyone else came down to the pit lane to get some more fuel into the race cars.
And I saw one driver in the middle there that actually slid his pit box, and it looked like it was one of the unorthodox machines. I think it was maybe Liam Sheen again that slid that pit box, so he's going to lose significant time here in the pits as a result of that one. Well, it did not take long for that caution to run out. We ran our last green flag cycle at about, what was it, 28 laps, give or take, and well, this one we made it less than one. So, it's safe to say that the aggression is starting to ramp back up again?
In the second half of the race, it looks like potentially there were some massive runs, mind you, with some of the separation off that restart. And I'm wondering if that had a lot to do with the drivers going so quickly, not wanting to back off.
It's very possible, to say the least, on that. So with some drivers not wanting to back off, because you never want to back off when you have a huge run. You just want to try to go for it and pick up whatever spots you can, because by the time your run is neutralized, you're most likely going to be in front and clear of some of the other drivers when, that run is neutralized. So, with all of those runs and the field separation, I almost hope that we don't have that again on this restart, because it's clearly asking for another wreck.
Still lots of different pit stops taking place with drivers getting repairs, Finch getting repairs. Also have Kelly amongst them. We also have your pole sitter and Ems still in the pit lane getting repairs, moving down the pylon. That's now put just 25 cars on the lead lap at the moment here at Daytona International Speedway. That's still 25 drivers who might have a shot at this thing still, depending on how things play out.
So, with everything that's kind of playing out the way it is, and the few drivers that did not come down, I almost can't blame those drivers, though, for not coming down, though, from that caution, because, they just pitted a few laps prior, so I don't see why it would really go down, unless, like you said, it was a top up on fuel just a little bit there. So, with all this in mind, it's going to be quite entertaining to see how this will play out, because it certainly seems like aggression is starting to kick back into gear. Hopefully, though, we don't get that big field separation, because we would like to have some more green flag runs throughout them, because it was just absolutely amazing what we saw, in that 28-lap run. It had a lot of close racing. It was certainly something to watch.
Yeah, now we get to see if drivers like Pataska can come back to the field. Remember, Pataska had a fast repair available amongst many of the other cars who were in that incident. Pataska's only in P number 14, so there's a chance we see drivers such as him charge back up the field. Robertson, he's currently just in 13th spot. You also still have guys like Thompson, who did use them before. They're now all of a sudden in the conversation in 11th position. We'll have to see who gets the best of runs as two teammates in Dawson Brock and Joshua Wolf. In fact, 4 teammates inside the top 4 will get ready to bring them to the green flag once more.
One thing worth noting, David Baker back into 4th place. This is as high as he's been, I believe, all day, with some runs out of in front, but it's been a while since we've seen him running further up in the field. So David Baker back up in the top 5. He's running 4th place. He'll be starting 2nd on that outside row. With Yal Valverde, that's now moved up 3 spots into 9th. So looks like we've had a little bit of more position shuffling under this caution as well, with Pataska being put down way further in the field as a result of that wreck.
Indeed here. So here's how the top 10 shapes out. Brock's the control car, Wolf on the outside of row 1, Henderson and Baker in row 2. Then you've got row 3 where it's going to get interesting. Belval with a damaged race car is in 5th, starting alongside Jan Valverde. Adam Facciponti starts in 7th, Shane Norton 8th, Weger in 9th position. Johansson rounds out the top 10 on the racetrack. Rather. As we get all set to go once again, going to get interesting once more here at Daytona.
Still a little bit of a separation that I'm spying with my little eye, just past 12th place with that outside line. So it seems like a couple drivers trying to hold back a bit, going to try to bunch it up a little bit more now. The pace car going to leave the track and leave this field once more in the hands of Dawson Brock, who is back up to the point. He's off and away. Great fly back out at Daytona.
Good launch by the teammates up at the front. A bit of a checkup for about 5th on back. Remember, Belval has that demolished race car in that 56 machine. I'm surprised he didn't get the damage repaired. He clipped the apron, and all of a sudden, everyone's trying to get up to the top.
So with that little bit of a checkup, that's created some issues further in the back. 3 wide with Shane, who's going to split the middle. And still split in the middle is Shane trying to get through the middle. Kirk Crum goes the outside in the Bombshell Motorsports machine. And now further up front, though, with the field, not a lot of separation now. So this will allow these drivers to maybe get a bit of a cleaner green flag running this time.
Remember, there's still a few more pit stops to go in the Daytona 500. Coming up to 79 laps to go here at the World Center of Racing. As now the top 5 are all single filed out. But look who's looking to charge up. Shane Norton, Dallas Bataska. Where did we see that script before?
Yal Valverde wants in on that outside line because he jumped up, and he's now going to be leading that charge up to the front, but that's actually checked the outside lane up. Big bump to the back of that kinetic racing machine, as that was a huge shove there from Shane Norton to the back of Valverde to try to push him further up in this grid. But I do see some damage on Valverde. Might be slowing them down a little bit because that outside line doesn't seem to be able to find some speed to get up there.
Big check by Norton meanwhile. Bataska nearly slammed the back end of him coming off of turn 4. And you don't want to bump draft off the corner specifically because you can destabilize the car in front. But that top line looking to stabilize itself out. Bataska dives to the bottom.
So Dallas Bataska's had enough of that outside line. Is going to chop down low. Shane Norton trying to get a bit of a side draft on the corner. Going to go outside now. There was Valverde trying to slip back in between Kim Johansson and David Baker. He's going to get his way in there. Really just squeezing his way down. So everybody trying to find what line works best for them. And now, all of a sudden, Shane Norton is going to be the one to lead the outside with Trevor Vobrowski right behind him.
That 95 machine looking really squiggly up on the top line in 3 and 4 at the moment, but still has the help of Vobrowski and co. Looking to move up with them, Robertson, Go Lightly, Ross Banfield. All charging up on that top line. 5 total cars are on the line. Kelly making it 6.
So that outside line is forming up a bit more now. Top 3 sails single file on the inside row. Shane Norton, though, has the run. Vobrowski looking to help him around the outside. He's going to have to get right up to that bumper. Henderson hits the apron and nearly bounces up into Vobrowski, though. Everything is beginning to kick off, and now side by side for the lead.
Henderson right now watching along in that top 10 position, while Norton leads this time by. He goes to the bottom side and controls that line now. Vobrowski, though, still has the numbers on the top line at the moment. 6 make it 7 cars high, 7 on the bottom line. Norton getting squeezed. That might be borderline as Brock goes on the double yellow line. You are not allowed to pass on that line.
That is close. Brock was definitely below that line when he started to advance position. I'm not sure if race control will do anything about that, but it looks like they're going to let this one play out. Here comes Norton back around the outside.
Brock lets off the gas. Here comes Norton to lead the lap. Bobrovsky giving a bit of the push from behind. As you take on board, Brock didn't complete the pass, so no penalty on that. Again, you're not allowed to pass when on or underneath the yellow line like in real life. Brock this time looks to pass, this time above the line.
And Protaska finds the speed on the outside. He nearly went 3 wide again. Now he gets held up by Ross Banfield, who blocks from high to low. Protaska trying to find some speed on the outside line. That's where Protaska has found all of his runs, has been on that outside line. Whether he has had help or not, he's looking to the outside, 3 wide on the outside with Ross Banfield trying to find his way through. He's going to have no help again, so it makes you wonder, where does he find the speed to even start to pull these moves?
I think I may know a few places, as we talked about it earlier on in the broadcast, but Protaska has that side draft with the wall to be able to pull him down the back straightaway. I think, though, he would need more cars, though, because right there, the run is starting to die off. Go Lightly actually checks up to let him go on down, potentially.
So Protaska being cut a huge break there by Go Lightly, and that 77 machine lets him in. Protaska looking to the outside again. Here we go again. 3 wide in the tri-oval. You got the 333 of Andreas Robinson trying to fend him off. And this time, Protaska not able to find the speed. He's forced to back off and go back to the middle. Just in the nick of time, here comes lap traffic.
Burping the throttle once again, Protaska at 193 miles an hour. The cars around him in the 180s. Lap traffic a-ho. That is Nicholas Skeets. We haven't mentioned him too much as he drops behind. And a major anchor coming up as well. That can make it dicey. Hagstrom on the top side as well. This is going to make it very difficult on the top line for those 2-lap cars. Skeets will also make the pass on by as the lead car's moving to 4.
It looks like everybody has found a way past Hagstrom clean. And now, Protaska's run that he once had is all but gone. He's going to have to sit back, be maybe a little bit more patient here now. We continue to tick the laps away. Less than 75 to go, coming to 71 at the line. So this whole race has just been absolutely incredible. And Protaska, he's still looking racy. He's still trying to make looks to the inside and the outside.
Is it too early, though, to be this aggressive?
That is, you can honestly say that's almost an objective. It's almost down to the racer to make that decision, but you know, you still got over a quarter of the race left, but you never know what could happen. You know, another wreck could happen at any time, and it's certainly coming close. For some of these times, Protaska tried to look around the outside. Robinson got awfully close to Joshua Wolf, that jumped back up high to block Protaska's run. So wherever Protaska is trying to go, it seems that Mr. Robinson does not want to give him any inch to find his way through. But there he goes. Protaska to the outside, 3 wide. I believe that'll be for 5th.
Yes, indeed, right now, as Protaska not going to be able to duck back down, though. The hole's been filled. Go Lightly takes away his spot in the line. So the unorthodox motorsports machines now work in the middle and ditch Protaska on his attempt to go up high. But as we've seen, Protaska showing the best speed all day on that top line, making it work all race long. Still was scored in 7th position last time by.
This is absolutely incredible as how he's managed to pull this off, but it's evident that Go Lightly does not want to cut him a break this time. He did earlier when he lifted off and let him in. He's not lifted off this time. He's sticking his throttle in it. I'm impressed that Protaska still is not dropping back because he has literally no help whatsoever on that outside line, and somehow he's managing to hold his own.
Yeah, still side by side with the 77 machine. All of this with nobody with him. You'll have to get off the line, though. You've seen that lap car just in the distance. That is Belval. That's how much the 56 has fallen off in the span of about 20 laps. So Protaska having to drag the brakes. It's going to get dicey, needing to get to the middle.
He was almost trying to play chicken to see if they would let him in or not, but they did not. So now Prochaska's dropped back a bunch of spots. Belval is by and gone. So now Prochaska can try to work his way back up, and he's going to do so. One car below the apron. Who was that just went below the apron? That was Henderson, I think.
Bobrovsky got loose. Contact. The 77 and Prochaska involved. Up against the wall. Go lightly and Prochaska slam it. No caution flag. We stay green. And Prochaska's car's destroyed.
Well, I think Dallas Prochaska is not going to be able to make those runs anymore. That was disastrous for Prochaska. Go lightly, pushed up, tried to shut the door, and he got put into the wall as well. Tried to block the run, but Prochaska was already there. Prochaska down to the pits. His race is over. This has really split up your lead group. We only have about 9 or 8 cars on that run right now. Question is, can the cars further in the back hold the draft to maybe close that gap and pull our field back up again?
That's going to be a major question. That incident also going to cause some early season point implications. Remember, Prochaska was one of the 3 winners at the Daytona 2.4. Today, we'll have to go and get repairs. He already used his fast repair in this event. Rock, though, leads the bottom. Norden leads the top. 66 to go, this time by Northland.
That just shows you right there how easy it is to make mistakes on a track like this. When you're running at 190 plus miles an hour and you're trying to make moves like that, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from. You know, you can tell that he was anxious, he was impatient, he wanted to get to the outside and continued to try to put cars down spots, but you know, this time there is a certain limit and it looks like he stepped over the line, and unfortunately Go Lightly tried to go up to block him and got put into the wall as a result. So you know, it seems like it didn't end well for anybody. That field, though, it is starting to form back up on the inside line.
Indeed, right now, a lot of drivers going on the bottom. Currently, 4 or 5 drivers running that middle line. The drivers on the middle line, Norden, Robertson, Banfield, Valverde, and Kelly. Kelly, though, not afraid to make it 3 wide. He got ahead of steam going in the 198 range, and he's not afraid to use that speed.
Oh boy, didn't end well the last time they went through Calamity Corner like this. Kelly getting right to the wall, but he's going to make it work. 3 wide for second now for the lead as he's entering the tri-oval on the inside. It's Shane Norton and Dawson Brock, but here comes Kelly with that steam, and now he's got Ross Banfield to help him. 3 wide, 2 rows deep. Sorry for my voice crack there.
The energy and the intensity levels have gone up even more so as Kelly gets ditched. Some help coming from a few car lanes back, though. Weger trying to move up to the top. No, he goes back to the middle. Everyone goes 2 wide except for Kelly, so Kelly will drop back like a stone in the Can-Am machine.
A good job of Kelly to drop it back here and not try to force the issue. Another car going by around the outside. That is Hagstrom again. That shows you just how far off the pace Hagstrom is. His lap time's still well over 53 seconds, which, as we discussed, was the safe limit, realistically, before you, in a sense, had to park it. He's still out and running, though, so things are going to get interesting here. 3 wide action is split up for now, but now, though, it's very evident people are getting more and more antsy. Any patience is just about gone.
At this point, though, where do you take your pit stops? That will end up breaking up that insanity for a little bit. Eventually, these cars have to do duck down for a few times for fuel.
That is true. Like we were discussing, it's about 36 to 38 lap range. You know, if you're running in the middle of this field, only 30 though, if you're running out in front. So with that in mind, Dawson Brock has got to be looking a little bit more nervous now because he's been leading every lap since the restart. So he's got to start looking at that fuel gauge soon here. We went green at about, what was it, lap 111, I believe. So it's going to get very, very tight. And sorry, lap 120, but still, you know, we're about 13 laps or so away from these lead lap cars having to come on down.
Yeah, many of them have not gone for that calm before the pit stop sequence yet. They've all elected to either go to the top of the bottom. Morgan at the back of the pack nearly lost it off of turn number 4. That forces 3 wide. Morgan is in 32nd position, 44 laps down. And they're going to end up keeping things straight, thank goodness, at the back of the lead group.
So things are looking dicey, even with cars that are laps down and not even fighting for position in this top field. 2 by 2 all the way down. It looks like a high-speed pace lap at this point in time, with cars trying to maybe find ways through. Robertson making a little bit of a peek to the outside. Shane Norton still trying to find the speed that he would need to take over the lead from Dawson Brock up in front. It seems as though like Brock, he's not looking to give up that lead despite him burning a lot more fuel, running up in front. But the problem is, if he loses the lead, that would then mean he has to go to the outside. And if he's the one that's used the most fuel, he does not want to be on that outside line.
Indeed, because you can also burn more fuel on that line. As you take a look now from Robertson's point of view at the moment. Robertson's again had this impressive race throughout the day today, starting in 23rd. But even with that little bit of hood damage, popping it up, flaring it on the right front, just above the Toyota Camry logos, the car has shown great speed. It's just been the handling. The trial for that car has gotten loose a couple times.
Indeed. So with the car getting a little bit looser, it'll be interesting to see how this will go. Track temperatures are continuing to drop as we get closer and closer to racing under the lights. It's currently closing in on 1900 hours local time in sim. Track temperatures looking at about 81 degrees Fahrenheit, so the speeds and the lap times potentially going to be dropping as well as we continue to get closer and closer to those lights flicking on.
Track temp is at 81 degrees, under 60 to go. Coming to 59 laps to go this time by, as they continue to force their way on, or rumble their way around, I should rather say, on this racetrack. Should note Mike Kelly has charged his way back up to the 4th car on the top line at the 2 machine, so with the help of them and Morgan, just 5 cars are running up top. Everybody else is running on the bottom.
So with all these drivers tending to run on the bottom, and with that outside line not seem to really find any kind of place where they can make those moves work, it's going to be the question of who's going to be the one to break first. Everybody's been really, really calm since then, but I can tell drivers are getting a little more wiggly, especially off of turns 2 and 4. So it's going to get tight here, and it's only going to take one driver that tries to make that look in order to have all chaos ensue again.
Here. Still keeping an eye on how these drivers race along. Currently, the race time already above more than 2 hours of action. Compare that to the international split. They went around 3+ hours of action going. So our racing going much quicker today so far for the European split. Not to slight the international region, but it's been a quick race so far.
Certainly has. This race has absolutely flown by. We're already on lap 143 here, about 2 hours from the top of the broadcast. So things are certainly beginning to round on down, and as we continue to tick these laps away, we approach that final quarter of the race. 57 laps to go at the line, and that number is going to continue to slowly tick on down. We are getting closer and closer to when drivers are going to have to start pushing big again, and maybe make some moves that might not want to.
Right now, still coming to 56 laps to go. Want some of the drivers starting to push. Should note Marcus Niskanen, one of the bombshell machines, is coming up through the field along with his teammates. They're starting to go 15th on back. They stayed in the 20s much of this race. So Bombshell Motorsports appear to be starting to go on their line. You can see some of them lining up at the back of the field.
So some of the drivers starting to more single file out. We do have a group of cars just ahead of this lead field. that is going from about 19th place on back to roughly 24th. So I was a few more laps mixed in there. You wonder if maybe the leaders will try to pit before they reach that batch of cars. I do want to kind of shout out Shane Norton here again, because I just realized 31 spots gained. He's gone from nearly dead last, and now he's running second place. So, and he's trying to push for the lead right now anyway. So Shane Norton, he's been having a fantastic drive today.
He has. We've talked about him a little bit today, but this time he'll get the run and lead the lap. Got a little bit squiggly though again in the trial. You might have seen that little bit of a cut to the left. That made it a little bit dicey off on the outside line at the corner, but the lap traffic is too wide up in front of them. Buckle up your seatbelts. This is going to get interesting. That lap group involves drivers who have already used both their faster pairs. You see them there. Belval, Slacker, Ruse amongst them, Perticles, Finch, and Go Lightly are all in this drafting group. And the leaders, they're also double wide. They're going to have to find a way to get single file and quick.
Oh yes, they're going to catch them before they reach turn 1 next time. They're about 10 miles an hour off the pace of those lead lap groups. Just like I called it, cars coming down to the lane. Josh Wolf among them. Your race leader, Dawson Brock, also coming down. A double file is the end of the pit lane. So a bunch of drivers electing to pit. Early contact in the pits with Jared Morgan and Alexander Wegert as he turned in for his pit stall.
And Belval also getting an incident as that was all going on in those lap cars. One of them seeing a bit of airtime. Look at this as Belval gets turned and they go hard into the inside wall.
Oh, dearie me. That was Gabriel Roos, one of the kinetic cars, drifted from the bottom lane right up into him. That was clumsy right there from Roos, who just completely drifted right up the track and turned him around. Not sure if he was even aware he had a car to his outside. That, though, not the move that you wanted to see. And, oh, Shane Norton spinning it in the pit lane right in front of Mike Kelly. Got two wheels on the grass and spun it around.
Carried too much speed on the pit entry. He was at 63 at the cone, but take a look at how much he tried to slide it in there. Went with the middle line, tried to get it to the top of the lane. A bit too much. Around it went.
All it takes is to get those two tires just a little bit too close for them to fully spin it around. Not what Kelly had a bit of a close call with this whole mess as well. Watches the closing distance on Norton was so quick, and Norton's going to spin down right in front of Kelly. Mike Kelly managing to keep it out of the 95. So now it's unfortunate to see for Shane Norton. But that was certainly not the cleanest pit cycle we've seen all race. I'm a bit surprised there was not a caution, though. We have another driver actually that's off, and that is Shane Norton again. He spun on the pit exit this time.
And that gets to our next discussion, pit exits. At this track, you can get loose. And there's a lot of marbles and dirt there. You see him slide over some of the dirt right off in the grass. He actually touches the Armco barrier on the inside.
Now, the pit exits can be very, very tricky. You know, you're trying to keep that speed going as much as you possibly can on the exit. Oftentimes what drivers might do is they might slam it down in the fourth on the exit and then just flat-foot it all the way through so they can keep the momentum up and not spin it around. But when you have that sort of thing happen, it's not what you want to see. So he's lost a ton of time in that pit cycle. He spun around in the pits, had to back up. Then he spun it on the exit as well, lost a lot more time. It doesn't look like he has a lot of damage on the front end of that car, so he should be fine there. But this has certainly divvied up your field a lot.
Coming to 50 laps to go, some drivers have not pit so far, we should note. We are inside the window to make it on a two-stopper. So a lot of these cars trying to stretch it. Facci Ponti just ducked down this time by, but on his own in the 84.
Out of Facci Ponti down to the lane then with 50 laps left to go. So Facci Ponti's got to be hoping that somebody will be coming out with him from these cars in the pits, but I would not be expecting that too much. They're 3 wide though with your lead group, and I'm getting a little nervous here. Liam Sheen pulling to the outside. Alexander Wicker right up the middle. Sheen with a massive run, trying to slot in behind his teammate Mike Golightly, going to manage to find the gap in there. The 14 car just not having the speed to keep up. So all this is beginning to get a bit more interesting. One car on the inside and very slow indeed, still keeping it green. Potential fuel issues, do you wonder?
No, a blown engine. That was Hagstrom smoking his race car. But right now, about 9th on back is where that next group of cars is. The drivers are already pit. Wolf, Brock, Kelly, Bobrovsky, Henderson, Johansson, Valverde amongst them. They are currently 38 seconds behind. Here's the thing though, I talked about this a little bit, Nolan. If you stay single file and have good speed, you're able to get faster than that whole pack of cars. They're faster than the lead group by about a 10th.
The question is, will that be enough to keep up? Remember, we do still have just about everybody that is going to need to come down for one more stop. With a fuel range of about 36 to 38 laps and 48 laps to go, there is no way that these drivers are going to be able to stretch out the entire race. They just have to make one more stop.
Already, some of the Torque Freak racing machines, you see them try to cycle along. It's like a pentalon or a bicycle sprint, so to speak. One driver leads, next car switches. All of them trying to help each other with fuel and make sure they get to their marks. With the strategy call these teams took, it's looking like they might go, let's say, until the 25 lap to go mark, maybe the 30 to go mark, and try and short fuel the race cars and go from there, or take the short fuel now, then go all the way to the end of the fuel run. Your thoughts on the strategy of these cars?
Well, it depends on what they want to do. Some drivers would not put it past them, just try to short fuel, and some might just dump it full and try to, get what speed you can. A couple more lead lap cars coming down. Marcus Niskanen, Kirk Crum, and Eric Mickey. A lot of the bombshell cars all coming down at the same time, which brings it back down to team strategy. You do want to try to pit with your teammates if you can, because it can just give you that extra little bit of speed, because you're more willing to work with each other on the exit of the pit lane to get those runs that you need.
Taking a look back at the lead group, it's still getting dicey. Some of the unorthodox machines continue to go back and forth. Right now, there is a lap car mixed in that, a few of them, in fact, on the bottom. As right now, Golightly is in 22nd position. Liam Sheen scored in 17th. Cars are ducking down to the pit lane. Ross Banfield into the pit lane this time, and Schlacker just crashed on the pit entry.
Oh dear, so it already beaten up a car, getting another dent to that front end. That almost was a reaction there, because if you looked closely at Ross Banfield, that car was twitching left and right. He was working that thing, trying to get it down to the pits, and it looked like Schlacker tried to put in a little bit more speed to try to maybe overtake him down in the pits. I'm not quite sure what the call was there, but it certainly didn't end well, as Banfield really was struggling with that car on the entry, maybe on worn tires.
You see Schlacker has already been involved in some incidents. Right there, bit of wheel hop, and the caution is out in live action.
No.
On the pit entry area, Fasci Ponti amongst the drivers involved, as we are back under caution flag. Morgan, along with Norden, along with a few others, just as the leaders were ducking down the pit, had a caution.
And I'm trying to find what happened. Adam Fetchpondi was on the outside line. Oh, what in the world? Looked like there was some contact right off of turn number 4 to bring this out. I didn't catch the whole what happened on my screen, so looking at the replay, the 86 was involved, or the 96 was involved. He got spun around coming down to the pits and caught a bunch of drivers, including the poor 333 machine, who was just caught out as an innocent bystander trying to get to his pits.
This changes a lot as you see Morgan get turned around, and right about there, boom. Robertson did have a fast repair available, but now it's a one-stopper from here, and now it gets very tight. Here's a look for the 84.
Yeah, that was Adam Fetchpondi. That was one of the drivers that was caught up in that one. Not the end to his day, or not the event of the day that he wanted to have as well. Like you said, this changes everything. We got 44 laps. it's gonna be interesting to see whether drivers, I don't think they can make it on fuel yet. That was Andreas Robertson. You see, was just completely blindsided by a spinning car as he was trying to get to his pits. Oh my dearie me. That was probably one of the worst possible situations for drivers that were trying to pit. And it's not what you wanted to see. Looking at it from the air now, and you'll see the 90, it looked like the 95 got loose off of Ford. Came down and turned into the 96, and that caused a big mess. But with this in mind, though, I'm not sure if drivers will be able to make it to the end. I think they'd have to put in, another 6 laps of fuel or so, but they just don't have the space and tanks to do that. So this is going to get interesting to see how this strategy, could play out as we get towards the end of this race.
And a lot of cars down the pit lane. Bennett currently trying to get into his box, as you can see. And off and away comes a brand new race car for the 007 machine. But a lot of drivers did duck down, some did not, and now it gets to where it's the wonder of how will this all cycle. This is going to be an interesting Daytona 500 here for the Major Series, absolutely now.
Oh yes, it's going to get very interesting now that this caution has come out. Whenever you see a caution around a pit cycle, which has been the last 2, it's always interesting to see how things will kind of play out. I think it's Ross Banfield potentially in the lead as of right now, but we'll have to wait and see when that updates for us. It's looking very, very interesting with a lot of drivers kind of jumbled up in the midst of things.
Yeah, coming to 43 laps to go right now in a rem. And here's the thing too. Now it becomes the question, if you're any of these cars, when do you pit now if we go green? Because again, we're in a situation where they're at least 5 laps minimum outside the window.
I don't know. It's a very tough call to say the least. I almost wouldn't want to pit though with 5 laps to go. Because if you mess up, you're basically done for. You don't have any room to try to make it up. I would almost maybe try to split this run out. Maybe short fuel it now and then pit with about maybe 20, 15 laps to go.
As everything gets sorted out here, we'll take a quick step aside. When we come back, we'll have your restart. Coming to 42 laps to go, you're watching the Major Series European Split, Daytona 500. Ross Banfield leads. Back to racing at Daytona International Speedway. Ross Banfield is in the lead, while starting in second is Marcus Niskanen. A slow start this time as the green flag flies. Coming up 41 laps to go. The question's going to be, how will the fuel strategy play out, and who will come away with the checker flag by the end of the night?
Well, this is going to be where everything's really going to kick off. Now is the time when all the aggressiveness will start to come out. We've got 40 laps to go, and from as we can understand it, nobody has enough fuel to make it through. You are going to have to pit one more time. 3 wide for the lead, though, or attempting it. Ross Banfield on the bottom, Eric Mickey in the middle, and Bombshell teammate Marcus Niskanen trying to find a way around the top side, but he has to back out.
And Bombshell has been waiting for this moment all race long, knowing they've been in the back much of the race as an organization. Now they're looking to push. Mickey getting the push. He'll lead for the first time today at the stripe. But they're getting some 3 wide action behind. Weggert and Henderson 3 wide alongside Dawson Brock.
He's going to get antsy here. Henderson trying to split the middle, but he gets cut off by Kurt Crumb. Weggert has to back out around that outside. It's a 3-car Bombshell train on the outside, with Banfield trying to fend them all off on the bottom for the lead. The way things are looking right now, I don't even think we're going to be able to run the rest of this race green. I think somebody's got to try something, and it is going to cause another incident. But the way the aggression is just beginning to heat up in the end of this race, I do not see it happening, to be frank with you.
Yeah, somewhere in the range. We were discussing this before coming back. Maybe around 2 potential caution flags. But that's, of course, an if. There's still a lot of racing to go. And these drivers, again, are fighting hard. Mickey with a huge amount of side draft off the corner on Bobrovsky along with Banfield. Not able to get as big of a run, though, up on the top side, however. Currently, 6 drivers up top, 6 on the bottom in the lead group.
So everything is looking very, very tight near the front. Again, it's going to take that one driver that's going to try to put it 3 wide, and then that's where it's going to get interesting, or they could get a bit close on the exit of the corners, which is what's happening with Banfield and Mickey. This whole race has just been an absolute thriller, and the thrills certainly are not over yet.
Bit of smoke in the backdrop, but we stay green at the moment. Niskanen letting off. And some drivers are trying to join the top line, but it will take them a couple laps. Facciponti amongst those drivers. Bombshell Motorsports' Hermilia should know is back on the lead lap with all the caution flags. He's also charging to join his brotherins up on that top line at the moment.
So it looks like teamwork is going to come down to this at the end. The problem is Banfield does not have any of his unorthodox Motorsports teammates to help him out there. A lot of them were caught up in incidents early on in the race, and at this point in time, I think Banfield's really the only one in this lead group. He does have Liam Sheen further down in the field along with Anna Facciponti, but those are 2 cars that, like we said, they are not in this lead group right now. So Banfield, he's going to have to rely on drivers from other teams to give him a hand.
1 car scrubbing the wall. That is Morgan letting by the leaders this time by. As Morgan now drops down to 48 laps down the race. They still fight hard side by side, coming to 36 laps to go. Still early on to potentially ask this, but at this point, who is your favorite to try and come away with this checkered flag? Because there's been a lot of comers and goers this race.
Well, as Ross Banfield is my teammate, I'm kind of obligated to say him at this point in time.
Outside of your teammate?
Well, outside of my teammates, in that case, I'd have to honestly give it to one of those Bombshell cars, maybe Eric Mick or Marcus Niskanen. They've been looking very, very strong on the outside. They've been playing a very clean race. They've clearly played the long game, and it's worked out perfectly because now they're all 3 at the front and trying to fight their way up. In fact, Eric Mickey, he is now up and into first place through turn number 3, though he's not dropping low. Partially because Banfield was there, but when he was clear, he was staying up high to continue to get that help from Marcus Niskanen.
Mickey not wanting to take it, not wanting to go without a teammate to help him. Because if he goes down, that opens up the opportunity for a non-teammate to potentially come up and take away the top line's control. So he might try and wait maybe to think, I want to take Niskanen with me. And that 47 machine, that looks to be the thought process at the moment to try and get a run. One driver makes it 3 wide. Getting turned is Kurt Crum. Up in the grass. It's the second big one of the race. Caution flag is out. Henderson's in it. So is the majority of the bombshell cars.
Dawson Brock caught up in that as well. He led so much of the race, and that car is junked now as a result of that. But that is a huge mess on the back straightaway. Replay up on your screen. It was one driver, the 14, trying to push a 3 wide. Like I said, it takes one driver to try to make a move, and all chaos will ensue. That is exactly what happened. Here's one thing to note, though. With this in mind, this means now you can pit and make it to the end on fuel if we don't have a green-white checkered.
And the thought process, though, there, in my opinion, is the 14 was trying to make it 3 wide in a half a car length hole. At this point, that's where you'd say, okay, is it too early to try that?
Yeah, it was a risky move, and this time it didn't pay off. You know, we did see drivers like Pataska trying to try stuff like this throughout this race, and it didn't work out. This is on board one of the bombshell cars, and look at the smoke. Can't see into the grass. Beautiful drive from Hormilia to lock it down and go to the inside, avoid most of the wreck. Did get a good off-track 1X with that, but I'm pretty sure I'll take that over having a junked-up race car.
Should note that car, that was Wager, was and is 1 lap down in 17th position. The car he made contact with again was a lead lap car. Everybody in for their final fuel stops expected. Man, oh man, now it gets even more interesting because some drivers are hitting contact.
No.
Henderson and Benfield with contact in the pit lane.
Oh my goodness. Well, that has changed everything right there as well. And Travis Henderson with no front clip, he was running third place. Both drivers were turning in. I actually think I see what happened. Banfield turned an extra sharp because he almost missed his pit box, and Henderson was caught off guard by that.
Yeah, keep an eye on this. In iRacing, once you enter the pit boxes, there is a scenario where you can go through cars. That is not it right there because they weren't in the pit boxes. So that slams the 777 right up against the pit wall and demolishes the race car. He has to come back around once more. Big for Banfield. He still has to come down and pit, and not sure if he has a fast repair or not.
So that is a potential race ender if he's already used that fast repair for Banfield. No front clip, big damage on the back end. His race for the lead will be effectively over. He was going to have to find some serious speed in the back to try to work his way up. And now this will leave. Try to find it, but it looks like maybe Hormilia will be able to find his way back to the front as a result of all that. The 941 was several laps down. Now in second place because Banfield, he's going to have to come back in.
Yeah, there's no way he can stay out in that race car at the moment. So off and away, he goes off towards the pit lane underneath the double yellow line. Driver who will cycle to the lead, though, Hormilia. Diego Jimenez Hormilia. In the 941, he was at one point a couple laps down. He is your leader, coming to 32 to go.
That just shows you how much of a toss-up races like this can be. Is, you know, just with all of the messes that, you know, can happen in these races. And good news for Banfield, he did still have one fast repair left. Got a brand new race car. He's going to be able to get back out there with no damage on the car. So Banfield's race, it isn't over yet. It's going to be the question, though, does he have the pace that he'll need to fight his way back up to the front?
And a lot of the drivers involved in the last incident, including a lot of the bombshell machines, did have a fast repair available. Mickey was amongst them, Crum as well. Ended up getting repairs. Niskanen with a fresh race car as well in the 47. So the 941 in the lead. Josh Wolf is in second. Riley Thompson, Dawson Brock, David H. Baker, the top 5. And we haven't talked much about the 007 machine. That TDR car, who's already used a faster pair, is in 7th with Travis Henderson with no front clip, just rolling out of the pit boxes. He was scored in 8th last time. Bobrovsky will be scored in that position instead, his teammate.
So, with all of this in mind, I think since you asked me now, Justin, with this huge toss-up, who is your favorite to win the Daytona 500 in the European split?
At this point, Dawson Brock, again, has been someone who has been really good today in one of the Torque Freak racing machines in that partnership with Grizzly Motorsports, and it helps that they've been working together and been coordinated with one another. So I think Dawson Brock might be a driver to watch if he can get in the right positions. But here's that top 8 again. You can see amongst them Hermilla, Wolf, Thompson, Brock, Baker, Bennett, Valverde, and Bobrovsky. Of those drivers, all but one have gained positions from the drop of the green flag today.
And that driver that's lost positions has only lost one, and that was David Baker, who started 4th, currently sitting 5th. So your top 5 have all been having fantastic races so far. It'll be a question of who will be able to fight through to the end. And, you know, I can agree with you that Dawson Brock, he could be a favorite to win now. You know, Brock, he was having a really good run. He led so many of the laps earlier in this race. And if you'll remember, I believe he was actually caught up in a crash earlier on in this same race. Lost a lot of time. And now, after using that fast pair, he's back up in front now, running 3rd place.
Indeed here. So Thompson has slowly but surely crawled his way up through the field as for about 100 laps or so in this Daytona 500. But 30 laps to go. All cars can make it on fuel. It appears from here. Track temp 79 degrees. Air temp 76. Wind is very strong right towards the front straightaway grandstands. So keep an eye on the handling of these cars as well, because the wind can play a major factor. That wind really gusting for the corners.
Wind's currently hanging about southeast at 11 miles per hour, so some pretty strong winds for these cars. They are heavy, but boy, considering how heavy they are, it is shocking how light they can get at the exact same time. It's going to come down, though, to how this race will play out. Pace car is off. 30 laps to go in the Major Series Daytona 500. The 941 off and away. The green flag is back out.
Mill off with a good start, but Wolf lined up with Brock on the top side already. A huge shove for the 12 machine given by the 83. Wolf looks to try and get clear off into turn 1. Can't do so, but they stay hooked up. Wolf and Brock pushing in the corners, trying to take the race lead. Can they get clear? Yes, they can. They go 1-2.
Pushing in the corners is always something very, very risky. But if you can do it right, it can really pay off. And there we saw just how it can pay off. So now, Brock and Wolf, teammates, are through to the lead of the race, and there was nothing that Hermilla could do about it. He just had to sit back and watch as those two cars throttled to the lead.
Top 5 position, single file, but look who's popping up on that top line. You've seen just a moment there. Bobrovsky and Banfield, they want their track position and back quickly. And Bobrovsky will be now side by side with Baker as the top 2 cars try and run away. Hermilla, though, in the 941, almost thought about a block for a second with the bobble, but a huge head of steam coming up on top.
This just goes to show you, even if you get wrecked, even if it's in the pits and you have to take another lap, don't quit until it's over, because it is never over. Banfield went from having a trashed race car in the pit lane, and now he is back up and into the top 5 and trying to gun for the lead with the help of Trevor
Hermilla is into the pits. The 941 machine has just pit. So he must have had something happen in his pit stop sequence. He is now out of contention.
What in the world would happen there to put Hermilla down into the pits? That's not something any of us expected to see at all. Again, another game changer here in the late stages of a 500-mile race. Now, Agafecci Ponti, who's on the lead lap, trying to help Banfield on the top side, trying to help him shove Bobrovsky through to the lead.
See the 941 sitting in the pit box right there as the side-by-side for the race lead happens. Wolf getting the push from Dawson Brock. Bobrovsky trying to get the push for two of the unorthodox racing machines. The unorthodox motorsports machines, rather, working together. Banfield thought of a poke. Couldn't do anything there. Still 5 cars pulling away from the rest of the group, but some of the Bombshell Motorsports cars are coming in quick. Who took their faster pairs? Kirk Crum amongst them.
Well, it's crunch time now. We're in the final 25 or 26 laps of the race. There is no more time. You're waiting in the race. You got to make your move. You got to make it now. The front runners split just a little bit as Baker backs off. That might allow Banfield to get that run for Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky trying to get the side draft on as he tries to go a little bit lower in 3 and 4. Not able to find anything there, but he's got that run on the exit.
Side by side for the race lead. Momentum goes topside. Bobrovsky leads at the stripe. Coming to 25 laps to go this time by for the Major Series European Split Daytona 500. Bobrovsky, though, still can't get away on down as the cars are poking their noses behind. One thing to note, Facciponti did use his faster pair to repair his front nose for this final sprint.
So both fast pairs for both Banfield and Facciponti gone. If anything happens now, it could be a race ender. Bobrovsky still trying to find a way through. He's got to get that push he needs or he's not going to get anywhere at all. Joshua Wolf has been doing a good job hanging on to the lead. And it looks like Brock looked a little bit below the line there for just a split second. But he got it back onto the racetrack, potentially getting loose in the cooling temperatures as well.
Look who's coming, though, behind them. Kirk Crum, Marcus Niskanen, Eric Mickey. All Bombshell Motorsports machines have charged their way to the back of the lead group. So the 3 teammates look to try and make things interesting. Now they're lined up on the bottom side behind Liam Sheen, one of the 3 unorthodox cars inside the top grouping.
So this could very well come down to be another unorthodox and Bombshell war here on the track. Got 3 Bombshell cars and 3 unorthodox cars, all of them on the lead lap, all of them trying to go for the win. One car up top, it's Belval again who's going to get out of the way of these drivers. And now that is allowed Bobrovsky through to the lead of the race. Joshua Wolf has gotten clear. Will Bobrovsky jump down to cover? He will not. He's staying up top with Banfield.
Should note again, Grizzly Motorsports and Torque Freak Racing work together in the Major Series. 4 of those cars are inside that lead grouping. Another unorthodox car is entering the picture. The 77 machine is coming up in the draft and might go lightly. The Lucky Dog driver is now entering this fight. Look at how many cars all want to fight. 3 different teams all fighting for a chance for the win with 23 to go this time.
And you got to remember, this isn't just any normal win. This is the Daytona 500, one of the most famed motorsport events around the world, one of the most coveted wins, even on iRacing. So this is huge for all of these drivers, and it's going to be a huge points race as well, with it being just the 2nd race in the Major Series. So this race, it's more than just a race. This could be everything for a lot of these teams that have put hours, days, weeks of work into this race.
Indeed, with Bobrovsky getting a run down the back straightaway, he sees a bit of a push up from the bottom side. Wolf got a little bit tight this time. Brock helps him off the corner, however, and now 3 UDOX machines are lined up behind Bobrovsky. Liam Sheen electing to stay on the bottom side with the Bombshell cars. Behind them, 2 TDR machines are also working together in the 11th and 12th positions. So at this point, when is the time to go, Nolan?
I would say the time to go was about 5 laps ago, honestly, Justin. We're in the final stages of this race. Going out to just 20 to go. It's going to be 1/10 of the race distance left to run. And it's going to be an exciting 20 laps because you can tell there's something brewing in the water here. And no doubt for some drivers, it might not be pretty.
Have to see as Bobrovsky gets the run off the corner. He looks to lead this time by, might have a chance to get clear, in fact. The thing is, if he drops to the bottom, Nolan, those three UDOX machines take control of the top, and there's a chance it becomes a 4-car train. I think Bobrovsky knows this and wants to try and help his Team Alliance drivers on the bottom side and thinking big picture here.
That might be what he's trying to go for. You know, you got to sometimes make sacrifices to go for an overall win. And regardless, he still could very well take the win around the outside, because you can see just how much Banfield is pushing him around that outside lane. But here comes Wolf again, and Banfield, he's not able to find a way through, because unless he's got all three of those UDOX cars pushed with him around the outside to go through the line like Taska's been doing, it's not going to be enough.
Indeed, right now, 20 laps to go at the stripe that time by in the Daytona 500. Again, it's, if you're just tuning in, 3 different teams control the top 10. The alliance between Grizzly Motorsports along with Torque Freak Racing, Unorthodox Motorsports, and Bombshell Motorsports. The pack is broken up into 2. Liam Sheen was very loose off the corner and is down on speed, dropped to 185 in the corner.
So Sheen having a potential issue, but he's going to have a massive run on this field if he can catch that graph, which it looks like he's got it hooked. So he's going to have a huge run. He's approaching 198 miles an hour. Can he break the 200 barrier for the race? He's going to be one of the only drivers to get there. It's 199 now. That run is growing massively down through turn number 1. This is going to be huge. Just looking already how he's closed that gap into this field. So close, and now he's going to be side by side with teammate Adam Ponti.
Let's take a look on board with one of the unorthodox machines. This is Adam Ponti, currently scored in 5th position. A bit of a bubbles forming up on the bottom. David H. Baker is backing off a slight touch behind 2 of the Torque Freak Racing machines. As right now, Ponti has been trying to work himself into the perfect strategy all race long. He had that successful 2019 campaign, and looking to have a successful Daytona 500 today. That time by the stripe, Bobrovsky with the lead.
So Bobrovsky and Wolf really seem to be swapping positions here for that lead field. But again, these drivers are working together. They are basically teammates on track. So this is exactly what Wolf and Bobrovsky both want to see. They're keeping the unorthodox machines behind them. It's exactly what they've been planning. It really is a 3-team battle up here between the Alliance drivers, the unorthodox drivers, then you got Bombshell still waiting in the wings trying to make this work. So this whole deal up front is going to be absolutely massive for the points come the end of this race.
Yeah, points could be absolutely huge for these respective organizations. Wolf led last time by at the stripe. 16 to go as you hear the roar of the engines. And still, looks like Dawson Brock is waiting in the wings. Now it becomes the question, you mentioned the team win being one of the main things. What if you want the win for yourself? What's your thought process on that if you want to win for you in the driver's standings?
Well, in that case, you might have to team orders aside at some point or another. There is a point where if you want to go for the win, you're stuck behind, you're going to need to make something work. You know, regardless of whether that kind of goes against what your strategy's been all race, strategies change, plans change. That's been the case all race long with all of these cautions, especially happening right around the pit cycles. That's where we've seen a lot of change in plans. Racing is very much an adapting sport, and this race has been no different, with cautions coming out of some of the most inconvenient and most convenient for some drivers. It's honestly been a race of strategy. It's been a race of attrition. And this race, it's at this point down to all-out speed now.
The total downforce racing machines of Thompson, along with Henry Bennett, by the way, have now turned into a 4-team battle. They're just staying behind the Bombshell Motorsports cars. So turn it into a 12-car battle to decide the winner. Wolf still up at the front as they control the bubble. Still everyone waiting for the right moment in time for this race. You mentioned the go time, in your opinion, was already a few laps before. When is the go time to get to the race win up at the front for the lead?
Depends on how many laps it'll take you to get a run. to kind of go around, maybe the outside to go 3 wide like Pataska was trying, in which case, maybe 5 to go. It would not be out of the question, either 5 or 10 laps to go. But if you're going to try that, you got to make sure that it is done clean, because you don't want another wreck. Because if you end up trying to go through on this wreck on the bottom, more than likely it might come up and wipe you out as well. So that's something you always have to consider when trying to make runs, especially later on in the race. But then the question comes, are these drivers thinking about that right now?
Some of them might be thinking, how do we get our teammates lined up still? Remember, Bobrovsky's still on that top side. Do you try and go 3 wide to try and get a run to try and squeeze them out if you're the UDOX cars?
It's potential. There is the potential for that to happen. We've seen Pataska, Dallas Pataska, remember, he tried to make several 3 wide moves, and he sometimes will move up to 6 spots at a time on his own without any help whatsoever. Can you imagine the type of run you might be able to get if you do have some sort of help?
Indeed, and remember, this is just the second race of many for the Major Series this season, with the next one being at Rockingham and the K&N machines. Bobrovsky last time by got the lead lap by 9 1/1000ths of a second, and it might come down to that difference the way this race has been going this evening, coming to 12 laps to go. Bobrovsky again with the run, still 2 unorthodox cars behind him. Bombshell a little bit closer. TDR's machine still separated a little bit at the back end behind Mickey at the moment.
Sometimes it can come down to all that much. You run 500 miles of a race, 200 laps, and it can still come down to just fractions of a second. And at this point, the way they've been side by side the past few laps throughout this race, I would not say that a photo finish is entirely out of the question.
I wouldn't say it's out of the question either with this type of racing today. As the bottom side with a decent run, 2 of the Bombshell cars have now started to poke their way in, while the 4 UDOX cars have all lined up behind Bobrovsky. So they are starting to want to go and cut their way through the field. Will they elect to try and squeeze out Bobrovsky still is the main question. 11 to go this time.
It's going to be the big question. It's a big purple train on the outside of the racetrack. Bobrovsky has lost a little bit of speed approaching lap traffic again. This time it's Joshua Kanata that they're approaching, as well as Diego Jimenez Hormilla, the driver that was in the lead at the start of this run, and you had to go into the pits because something went wrong during the pit cycle under caution. So he is about to go from being in the lead at the start of the run to being 1 lap down now because of one mistake that was made. It is definitely not something they want to do. Pardon me, he's going to be going a 2nd lap down. He already is 1 lap down. So it's definitely not the way that Hormilla's day wanted to turn out. And at this point, he's probably hoping for that caution so he can get back on the lead lap and maybe join that fight for the lead.
He'll stay up on the top side at the moment. So Hormilla will go a 2nd lap down. Go Lightly is the lucky dog car. He is a part of this lead group. 10 to go. This time by 10 laps to decide the Daytona 500. Bobrovsky on the top side. Wolf still controls the bottom.
Just 25 miles left to run. That is not a lot of time at all. If we run this green, that's going to be 10 minutes or less. So not a lot of time at all. The time to push is now. The time to go is now. And it is going to be all down to so many drivers. And again, like we've been saying all day, one simple decision made for one driver in this field could be all that it takes to decide how this race turns out.
Down the back straightaway to 9 laps to go. No one's been making an aggressive move quite yet. Some of the UDOX cars, though, are starting to check up a little bit. They might be trying to build up a run of Bobrovsky, maybe, as they back off 2 car lengths back.
So, with everything starting to kind of bottle up here, Bobrovsky still is losing that momentum. He's not going to go. Here we go. Russ Manfield to the outside. 3 wide to get around the Alliance car. And he's got his UDOX teams helping him out here. Manfield trying to go to the front. He's got Adam Fittipaldi shoving him up the inside. Fittipaldi goes into the wall, but he hangs on to it. This is going to be massive here. Don't hang your teammate. Trouble contact. Big hit for the 84 to the outside line. But it's still 3 wide at the tri-oval.
Facciponti now with some right front fender damage. Still 3 wide for second position. Brock still holds on to the bottom side, trying to push Wolf. Bobrovsky still trying to hold on to the middle. As Ross Banfield has to back off, Liam Sheen leaves some space to allow him to get on down. He does. Here come 2 of the bombshell cars. Kirk Crum trying to come in towards the bottom line. He's boxed in with Marcus Niskanen.
That was a fantastically timed move from Banfield. Laid off a little bit, then got the charge. He probably would have gotten to the lead with that, but Adam Facciponti glanced off the wall and nearly took himself and Liam Sheen out of contention for the race, but they managed to hang on to it. Not a lot of damage at all. This race is definitely not over. I would not put it past Banfield to maybe try that again.
7 laps to go. More lap traffic, and it's a gaggle of them. Ruse, Kelly, Weigert, and Morgan all staying up against the outside fence. Going to keep it 2 wide for the race lead. Still, the 3 Alliance cars control the top 3 positions as Ross Banfield gives him a shove.
At this point, he's trying to get him out of the way. He is done being stuck behind Bobrovsky. He's been trapped there ever since the restart. He wants to get free. He is trying so hard to find a way through. Coming up, it'll be 6 laps to go now when they reach the start-finish line. This is about to get antsy, and something's got to give.
Bobrovsky leads this time by the stripe. Coming up 5 laps to go next time around. Again, Banfield still wanting to push. Sheen a little bit close. They check up a little bit. Facciponti is also a couple car lengths behind, trying to work with the bombshell cars, who are all trying to battle for 7th on back. To the outside goes Banfield.
Go again.
3 wide for the race lead. Bobrovsky in the sucker hole. This time, will Banfield take it middle? No. He keeps hooked up with his teammate and Liam Sheen. They try and push their way up to the lead.
If they can get a good run off of Ford, they might be able to make some ground here. That back straightaway, though, that's what this is going to come down to. Huge drive to the tri-oval. Banfield trying to work it here with Liam Sheen. Bobrovsky still has his nose, and they're approaching more lap traffic. This could end in disaster. They need to get clear, get down to that middle groove ASAP. Sheen jumps down. Trouble hits him into the wall, and that's going to bring the caution out with less than 5 laps to go.
We're in green-white-checkered territory. Liam Sheen spins around. Caution flag is out once again at Daytona. And that was not pretty. Contact between Sheen and Bobrovsky puts us under yellow, coming up 4 laps to go.
That puts Ross Banfield to 2nd place, though. He's going to be on the outside line come the restart. That's exactly where he wants to be.
And this is going to be huge. Take a look at this move. Sheen, he got clear. It's just a little bit too tight on the front bumper. The shot from Bobrovsky moves the 63 up, and around he goes. No one else makes contact.
Somehow the field missed Sheen as he bounced back down the track. I think that's put Sheen out of contention, though, but when we go green, it's going to be 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go here at the Daytona 500. This has just kicked off to a whole nother level.
It's now in green-white-checkered window situation. And that is going to make it interesting now at this point. Where do you go from here with this type of race now? Because it's going to come down to just a couple laps. It takes a lap to build up enough speed.
That's going to be the major question right now. And in fact, Banfield looks like he in fact did not get 2nd. He's going to be down in 3rd place right now. And from what I can see, does not look like he's going to have teammates to help him out here. Adam Facciponti going to be the closest one, but he's sitting back in 9th. That's going to be a good 2-3 rows back. So at this point, Banfield doesn't have that help anymore. It's going to be down to him.
Indeed. One thing to like to mention here, we haven't had the chance to talk about this, is this race does support charity, as in support of Cancer Society New Zealand. The race is organizing and raising funds for the Major Series Daytona 500. Today, 60 New Zealanders will hear the words, "You have cancer alone." And of course, a great charity to try and raise funds for, as that the Cancer Society, They know how a cancer diagnosis can affect every aspect of your life, and they're here to help you through. The Cancer Society can help you get to your medical appointments and provide accommodation. If you live far away from the hospital, your specialist nurses can support you through your treatment as well and answer any questions you may have, big or small. To go and find out more information, go to cancernz.org.nz. Once again, the Cancer Society, New Zealand. These drivers getting ready to go once more in this event. Going to get interesting.
Absolutely will. So at this point in time, it's looking like Joshua Wolf has been secure. He's been really secure in that lead on the inside groove. Got Dawson Brock who's going to be on the outside. Those are two drivers that were working with each other on the inside the entire green flag run. Ross Banfield sitting in third, but he's going to have David Baker on fourth. So at this point, Banfield is going to be literally completely surrounded by Alliance cars with no help anywhere in sight. So this is going to get very, very interesting in the end of this race. There's not going to be a lot of time left. It's really a toss-up from here because, you know, the way this is played out, there is no more conserving. Fuel is not going to be a factor. None of the lead lap cars have come down to pit. This is going to be down to just 2 laps and 2 laps alone.
Coming in lap 199 officially, there will be 3 green-white-checkered attempts for the Major Series Daytona 500 European split. Once again, to have the race be official, you must reach the white flag and get across the start and finish line. In turn, if there's any incidents after the white flag, there will not be another restart. If there is an incident where a car goes around and triggers a caution flag on the first lap of green, then we will go to the next GWC. If we go through all 3 green-white checkers, then the race will be official and the race will be finished under the caution flag. So here is how the drivers are lined up at the moment. Joshua Wolf is in first. Dawson Brock is in second. Ross Banfield is in third with David H. Baker, Trevor Bobrovsky in the top 5. Kurt Crum, Marcus Niskanen, Eric Mickey the top 8. Travis Henderson is in 9th. Riley Thompson inside the top 10. No one. In other words, it is anybody's race.
It really is. Anybody can win this. This is where all the cards are laid down on the table. All of the strategies come down to this. You know, you work on the strategies so long for these races, you adjust them to your the way exactly you want to be, and then it comes right down to this, where it's just so unbelievably tight, and it's no telling who's going to win because everybody's trying to go at the exact same time.
Indeed here. And remember, this is just the second of 3 overall races you'll see on the iRacing Esports Network for the Major Series Daytona 500. The Americas split takes place tonight, 5 p.m. Los Angeles time, 8 p.m. Eastern on GSRC in the iRacing Esports Network. So that is another dynamic to watch for as well. Lights are out on top of the pace car as we get all set to go back to green flag racing again. A green-white checker to decide it. On the bottom, Joshua Wolf. Dawson Brock yet to move up to the top side. So at this point, is teammate still a factor at this point, or do you just go for the victory?
It's going to be tough to decide that. You really need your teammates to move for anything, but again, this is one of those cases where you have been trying so much to just work your way through. And I don't know. I really don't know. That's going to be down to the teams and their own discussions at this point.
Do you expect 3 wide in this situation?
I would expect there to maybe be a move for 4 wide on the last lap potentially.
4 wide doesn't work here, Nolan, though. That's the thing, right?
I'm aware that it doesn't work, but desperate times call for desperate measures.
We'll see who can take home the checkered. Get ready, because this is going to be a wild one. The driver in control of the field, the torque freak racing machine of Joshua Wolf. His teammate, Dawson Brock, controls the outside line. They also have a third alliance member, one of the Grizzly Motorsports machine, and David H. Baker in the 4th position. Orthodox Motorsports' Ross Banfield on his own amongst the top 10 in terms of team placement. Bombshell Motorsports with 3 cars in the grouping. Green flags out, 2 laps to go at Daytona.
And Banfield gets cut off immediately by Dawson Brock. So that will immediately lock Banfield in third. Did not get the best jump off of that restart. It's going to be all him on his lonesome. Down to the inside, Joshua Wolf still running in first place with less than 2 laps to go now. Can Banfield make anything work? Will Brock try to make a look for the lead?
David H. Baker trying to make something work. He's got help from Kirk Crum. Crum all over the back bumper. Up the racetrack goes the 777. Trying to go around as Baker. He gets ditched onto the top line. If they get the white flag, the race is official. Coming towards the stripe. Wolf in control of the field. Brock pushing in second position. The final lap is underway for the Daytona 500 for the Major Series.
This is it. 2.5 miles left to go in the Daytona 500. Dawson Brock, can he make anything work? Here comes Banfield round the outside. Kirk Crum giving him a shove through turns 1 and 2. Joshua Wolf has been in secure lead of this race since 2 restarts ago. Down the back straight for the final time. Banfield with the run.
Banfield getting help from one of the bombshell cars in Kirk Crum. Will Banfield be able to get enough of a shove is the question. Joshua Wolf on the bottom side. On the outside, Banfield still leads on. Coming across to the final corner. Brock over the back bumper of Wolf. To the checker flag. At the stripe, it is Joshua Wolf. He wins the Daytona 500 Major Series European Split by 0.32.
Not by much. 0.03 of a second. A big wreck as well as they cross the start-finish line behind them. That was a thrilling end to this race. Banfield was not able to get the speed he needed. Kirk Crum just could not give it the shove. He had the run, but it just was not enough to get clear down the back straightaway or the front straightaway. But what a valiant effort from the 777.
Absolutely. Banfield was in the conversation all the way at the end of the race. Dawson Brock, though, stayed committed to helping his teammate in Wolf to help him take this checker flag. A big victory for the organization and the whole alliance, as all of their fellow teammates look like they want to help celebrate. Trevor Bobrovsky also finished inside the top 5 today for Grizzly Motorsports.
Oh boy. Well, what an end to the race. I was expecting the race to run a little bit greener, in all honesty, when we got through to the end of the race. And oh my goodness, it was just unbelievable. I think somebody just got rear-ended at the tri-oval. Oh, dearie me.
That was Jared Morgan, who got loose going on the pit entry in 29th position. But the teammates posed for photographs as Morgan drives off and away, off into the grass at Daytona. It's burnout time for the Daytona 500. A stellar finish to all the racing today for the European Split and the Major Series. Let's take a look at the unofficial race results, shall we, for today's action. Joshua Wolf started in 14th position today on the pylon. He comes home in number 1. In second spot, Ross Banfield. Dawson Brock comes home in third. Kirk Crum in fourth. Trevor Bobrovsky rounds out the top 5. Marcus Niskanen goes from 27th to 6th for Bombshell Motorsports, while David H. Baker finished in 7th. Riley Thompson 8th, Eric Mickey in 9th, and Kim Johansson with a top 10 finish today, Nolan.
And down in 11th place, it is, of course, Yal Valverde. Adam Fittipaldi bringing it home in 12th place. Henry Bennett having to settle for 13th. Travis Henderson in 14th. Mike Golightly in 15th. That will round off all your drivers to finish on the lead lap. The drivers that were not so lucky to finish on the lead lap: Andreas Robertson in 16th. Uldis Puteklis in 17th. Diego Jimenez Formilla in 18th. Mike Kelly 19th. And rounding off your top 20 is Nicholas Skeets.
Alexander Wiegert finished in 21st position. Joshua Canada in 22nd. Liam Sheen was in contention late, finished 6 laps down in 23rd. Gabriel Rosen 24th, 17 laps down. Then Schlacker, Finch, and Hegstrom both all out in the 40 lap down range. Belval finished 46 laps down in 28th. Morgan 29th, 50 laps down. Norden 30th and 52nd. Rest of the field, Pataska DNF 70 laps down. Christopher Emson 32nd. Michael Lane 33rd. Colin Martzoff rounds off the 34 cars who entered the field today. With that, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have post-race coverage. You're watching the Major Series European Split for the Daytona 500. Live from the virtual Daytona International Speedway on the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $400,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Daytona International Speedway for more coverage of the Major Series Daytona 500 European Split. From the virtual Daytona International Speedway, Justin Prince alongside Nolan Rempel and Hugo Wheat for post-race coverage. Man, oh man, was in an exciting Daytona 500. Joshua Wolf comes away with the victory by .032 at the checker flag in a side-by-side battle with Ross Banfield. For Joshua Wolf, it's celebration time. And we'll get the chance to speak with him in the midst of celebration time. He joins us in victory lane. Joshua Wolf, how does it feel to win the Major Series Daytona 500 in such an exciting fashion?
Oh, it's great. We had a lot of teamwork, kind of hoping for those green flag running, and just being able to push there at the end and be able to work with teammates it's great.
How much did that help you, knowing you had a lot of teammates in that lead group? It almost became a team versus team versus team battle, in fact, for all the top 10 positions. 3 different organizations represented inside that top 10 in the final 20 laps.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole plan was during the race, was trying to stay together, and if we got green flag laps to pit, and hopefully we'd just be able to run away. Of course, we didn't really get those runs to continue to work out, but I think that ended up helping pitting early, and not having to worry about pitting under some of those cautions got us up front and being able to work together there.
How difficult was it to try and control that bubble, especially in that GWC, because you did have Dawson Brock behind you helping you? How difficult was it to try and hold on, especially with the GWC?
Not really difficult. I had foot to the floor after I restarted, and it was enough for Dawson to kind of slide in behind and just push me. And with the caution, he was able to cool down, so there was nothing that he needed to worry about with engine temps for that restart.
It's a great point total overall for you today in the second race of the Major Series season. Next race goes to Rockingham. Your thoughts on going there in the K&N cars?
I'm kind of excited about that one. I like the more challenging tracks. Rockingham being very bumpy and multiple grooves. See what we could do with that setup. It'd be nice if we could run the high line there, so if that's something, you might end up seeing me up there. But we'll have to see. I haven't started any testing on that one yet.
Anyone you want to thank before we let you get back to your celebration?
Thank my team, both on the Torque Freak racing side and the Grizzly side. Did a lot of work this week on the setups, and also on the Torque Freak side, thank our sponsors, Infinity Decals and TeamSpeak. And yeah, thanks for Dawson for that great push there at the end.
Congratulations on the victory tonight. A stellar win.
Thank you.
That was Josh Wolf coming home with the victory today. And we'll see if we can get a word with Ross Banfield real quick. If he's not here, we'll have to go down the line to teammate Dawson Brock. Believe Dawson Brock is indeed ready. He'll be standing by with Nolan. Nolan?
Well, it was an interesting race to say the least for you, Dawson. You had a bit of an interesting. You actually had a very good run for the lead further up in the middle portion of the race, and you did end up managing to bring home a podium position. But the 500 miles have come and gone, and from moving 15th to 3rd, how do you feel?
Good. I mean, the moving 15 to 3rd part wasn't the hard part. I mean, we led a bunch of laps. But it wasn't really, it wasn't a solo thing. We had the entire team going. I'm sure you guys saw we had the team pit stops that we were doing. I mean, we really controlled that race. All of us, it was a team effort, and we kept our cars clean. We did better. It seemed like when you looked at the Bombshell guys, it looked like when they tried to work together, they didn't do well. When the Connect guys tried to work together, they didn't do too well. The Grizzly Torque Freak guys did an amazing job today, and I think that's really the highlight of this race is how well we drafted together.
Teamwork is, of course, one of the biggest factors when it comes to a race like this, and the drafting did definitely help a lot of people. We saw that you were trying to give Joshua a massive run off of turn number 4, and it's what just barely allowed him to beat out Ross Banfield, who had that run coming up to the line. It almost looked, though, like you were almost trying to make a little look for the lead yourself down the back straightaway on the restart. You did jump down to that inside line. Was that to help Wolf out, or were you thinking, maybe I could go for some glory myself?
No, it was basically once the green flag dropped, it was mash the gas, and then I had an opportunity to get low. I got low, and from there on, it was I'm pushing Josh to the win because I knew that it was just to push Josh. There was no thought of going for the win or anything else like that. It was just to push Josh, and I was in the throttle 100%. I'm sure probably the dropping down thing, I was just trying to keep the car a little bit cool because I wasn't too sure what was all going to happen, but it was just push Josh the entire way. It didn't even cross my mind to try and do something else.
Well, teamwork, like we just said, is a very important factor of the sport, and congratulations on getting that 3rd place in the podium standings today. Do you have anybody you'd like to shout out for us today before we let you go?
Oh yes, definitely. First of all, the Torque Freak guys, they were able to get us a setup that we ended up using, so thanks to them for all the speed. Thanks to the Grizzly guys, we worked with them. I worked with Trevor a bunch. He did a great job keeping me up in the front. He did a great job managing the top side when me and Josh were working together, so thanks to all of those guys. Thanks to some of our sponsors, Infinity Decals. I know the Torque Freak guys, they help them out, and they're a great sponsor. Also TeamSpeak, it's another one of our sponsors, so hopefully I'm not missing any. I'm not good. Normally I have somebody else do the sponsor thanking, but yeah. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, is the team. They did a great job today, and they got us to where we were able to finish today.
That was Dawson Brock, your 3rd place finisher. Thank you for taking the time to join us, Dawson. We'll let you get back to have those post-race discussions and celebrations with your team. Once again, thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
That was Dawson Brock coming home in 3rd, and we'll try again here with Ross Banfield and see if we can get here. Ross Banfield, do you have a copy? Try a second time and see if we can get a hold of him. If not, we'll see. Ross Banfield, do you have a copy, sir? It appears he might have a technical issue, unfortunately, here. No one, then at that point, your thoughts on today's race?
Well, we're waiting for Ross to hopefully figure out the issues. The race itself was absolutely thrilling. It was a huge, team effort from a lot of drivers. We saw that pulled off brilliantly with Joshua Wolf and Dawson Brock. The UDocs teammates really did have a lot going for them when they tried that run around the outside. didn't work out as well as they would have hoped. Probably it did end up with a couple cars on the wall, but with all of this in mind, it was going to be a very good run to the end, and indeed, it was the exact finish we were hoping for.
It's a whole different beast for the next round on March the 1st. It's the Rockingham 400 in the K&N cars. It's a very bumpy short track with a lot of tire wear. Your thoughts on Rockingham?
Well, Rockingham is going to be a much different ball game. For one thing, the cars, while being kind of similar in speeds to a point, of course, it is a much tighter track. It's a much shorter track. A lot more laps, too. I believe it's going to be a 400-lap race. So it's going to be interesting to see how this will play out for drivers today.
Indeed, it's going to be very interesting. Again, it's all mimicking the 2004 Rockingham 400 for today's action. But overall, it was a great race, I think you can say at the very least, because it's been a fun start with the 2 oval races now for races 3 and 4. But remember, on March the 22nd, they go back to the road courses too, Nolan.
Yes, that'll be interesting as well, with the race of the Netherlands for the Audi RS3 LMS, a pure touring car race. And that's, of course, one of the newer cars to the surface, so it'll also be interesting how drivers manage to put that together themselves.
Indeed, but heck of a race for today. I'd like to congratulate once again Josh Wolf on the victory for today's action. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the iRacing Esports Network and RaceSpot TV. And I'd like to thank Hugo Ruiz, our director, for being a part of the action. For Nolan Rempel, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Congratulations once again to Joshua Wolf. He's your winner of the Major Series European Split Daytona 500.